Never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic gotta say. I got him picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitting for it, cause you all cap like. Hold up, I shoot my shot. Wait, hold up. I'm really about to run this go up. You know it's all net when it go up. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand, ayy. We on overtime, you don't need to understand, ayy. You just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play the same. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing. Keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get dangerous. Cause it can get please don't play no games with me, I promise I'm too much. Ay, I can never let up even if you had enough. Ay, this ain't for the faint of heart, we always playing rough. I had enough, it ain't luck. I needed a vision, I needed ambition, I needed a mission to beat this submission with no intermission. I see the collision, the crash in the distance, they coming off track, no. Now when they ask what's the motive, don't talk about the show them. They all about to see what I mean in the moment. I gotta keep going, I'm shaking the dice and I'm keeping it rolling, they already know. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand, ayy. We on overtime, you don't need to understand, ayy. You just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play the same. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing. Keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get dangerous. Cause it can get dangerous. They hate when you elevate. They stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. They hate when you elevate. Elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate. Elevate, elevate. Yeah, they hate when you elevate. Elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate. Yeah, I had to elevate. I'm way too fly. Yeah, I'm feeling myself. Ain't no chance I'm coming down, no. Got a soul view to myself. Yeah, when I give it up, why do they wanna come take my place? I work too hard for it, don't need a replacement. This my vocation. Now I got rollies all in rotation. Hop on a jet just to take a vacation. Remember the moments was trapped in the basement. Now the hard work is all taking me places. Water all blood like we trapped in the matrix. Bet on myself and go ball out in Vegas. Living a life like I'm rich and I'm famous. Don't see the grind that I know that it came with. Oh. I ain't make it this far for myself. Yeah. I had to prove to everybody else. I had to set them straight. Yeah, I had to ball, so I had to renovate.
All right. We are tapped in. Salute ATP. Early in the morning. Clap it up one more again. Nice is always way more nice. Salute to everybody who was in the building this morning. Morning boxing talk. You know how we carry it. Boxing Talk Live. It's your boy Rain. At this point, we are here. So much to talk about. The weekend was a great weekend. There was some boxing this weekend, of course. And if you guys were here last night, salute to everybody who was here for the conversation interview, whatever you want to look at it as, with Brian Norman Sr. I thought that was a real great conversation, a long conversation. We talked about a lot of different things. Definitely took a moment to go ahead and get into Brian Norman Sr.'s mentality, right into the psychology of the father / trainer / boxing fan. And I think we had some moments, you know what I mean? Definitely some enlightenment and some context or perspective on the way he looks at certain situations he's going in with his son, dealing with obviously the business of boxing and also his view on boxing as where it is right now. Today we got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of news, things spinning around in the space. And of course, later on in the show, we'll be opening up the platform. We'll be talking about Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence Jr. and really just a PBC conversation to a certain degree. Again, we come back full circle to this topic, but Errol Spence, Jermell Charlo back into the headlines. We've seen videos of Errol Spence drop in the past week or so of him training and getting ready for what, I don't know, hinting towards potential return. Jermell Charlo also hinting at a return. We understand we have a new interim WBA champion. Baharu's his last name. I can't remember his first name right now. Excuse me. An African born in Germany, or from Germany at least, representing that space, a new interim champion. And now news coming out that the WBA has now or plans on, if they haven't done it already, putting Jermell Charlo at a number one spot, or a mandatory position, right, for a elevated champion. Taking into context that it looks like the WBA plans on either encouraging Terrence Crawford to vacate, or, ultimately stripping him of his title the night he gets in the ring with Canelo Alvarez. So Jermell Charlo may be back in the mix, at least eligible to be back in the mix in a championship capacity. That's going to be an interesting conversation to have now that Jermell is back in the conversation. Also, speaking towards Errol Spence in a way that I think most people who not know Jermell Charlo, but, who have watched Jermell Charlo, known that they're coming out that same camp, out of that Derrick James stable at one point in time, thought that it would be closer than that, maybe a friendship that they would have that would make them avoid each other in the ring. Well, Jermell Charlo doesn't seem to be concerned with that as much as people might think he should be or would be. We'll talk about that, right? Jaron Ennis, obviously in the headlines. Jaron Ennis has been in the headlines for, I don't know how long at this point, for maybe the past couple of months. Ever since his new relationship with Eddie Hearn, and now in his second re-signing a contract with Matchroom, but ever since the beginning of this whole entire journey with him and Eddie Hearn's and this relationship, the boxing space has been, indifferent at times with him. As of late, indifferent most of the times with him, with his decisions on who he's going to fight against. And now Jaron Ennis sparring, pictures rotating in the space of him sparring with Canelo Alvarez. An argument there to be said that he's actually helping Canelo Alvarez get ready for a Terrence Crawford fight that's happening in September 13th. The space is split, right? And people are talking about the code and things of that nature. And I can resonate on both sides of the argument. I mean, I think Jaron Ennis has a career that he has to pay attention to, and doesn't really owe Terrence Crawford in particular any type of loyalty to where he wouldn't do something that he thinks would better his career. But we'll talk about that as well, because I believe what we're really watching is just a triggered situation. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. I believe the black community in general, right? My community in general in this boxing space, in comparison to other communities, right? Mexican, Eastern European, the UK, the Asian, or Filipino, or, these communities seem to unify under a certain agreement and understanding when it comes to these type of fights that we're about to see on September 13th. And I think this space in particular has always been, the African-American community space has always been a little bit or a lot split, right? Not together. And I think a lot of people would rather see it that way. I think at times I'd rather see it as well. But, is there a place in boxing? Boxing is a gladiator sport, a competitive sport, not a team sport in many ways, and a team sport in other ways. Is there a requirement there? Is this the place for activism and all these different things? I know people would like to refer to the Muhammad Ali's back in the day, and movements and stances they took in their space. But, boxing being a sport, where is the place for this pride in pride in a race or a group of people, to a point to where you might not do something that might better your career off the strength of standing in camaraderie or unifying on certain topics. I don't know, right? Yes, no, in between. We'll talk about that today as well. We know Gervonta Tank Davis now in the news with Jake Paul in a very official capacity. The date's been set. We know what's happening. Gervonta Tank Davis fighting Jake Paul. They still have to negotiate the catch weight. Rumors spinning around that they're still trying to elevate this from an exhibition into an actual sanctioned fight. I'm not very confident that's going to happen, but the space is split as I think people are starting to become more. You're starting to see a lot of people who just looked at it from one perspective. We're starting to see multiple perspectives come out about it. People who feel like Tank, is well within his right to make his money. He's a prize fighter. He's here to take up his family, generational wealth, things of that nature. And obviously the fans who are more caught up on legacy, feel different, right? Okay, get your money, but you still have so much left here. There's money here in these fights. Why aren't you doing that? On the side, Lamont Roach left out there to dry, thought he had a fight happening. What does Lamont Roach deserve out of this situation? Has he been wronged, and how can he be made whole if that is the case? Rumors spinning around the space of Lamont Roach potentially suing Gervonta Tank Davis, right? I don't know if this is true or not, but does he have a case? Was there a contract signed? Does a handshake hold that much weight? Gervonta Tank Davis has always been a fighter with plenty of option, and his handlers or himself personally, however you want to look at it, always been particular about how they pick and how they move with him. It is what it is with the Gervonta Tank Davis conversation, because I think a lot of people have tapped out of that conversation as far as expectations are concerned of Gervonta Tank Davis. But regardless, we'll talk about that today, right? And Lamont Roach now entertaining fights. Shakur Stevenson has put out an olive branch. Richardson Hitchens is throwing out an olive branch. But their fights, it seems like, at least with the Shakur Stevenson fight, seems to be more so in 2026, where, a little over the halfway mark, right? A little more than over the halfway mark of 2025. So we're getting closer to 2026, about four months or something like that away. I don't know what the math is exactly, but Lamont Roach, does he want to stay active? It's been 5 months since he last fought Gervonta Tank Davis. A lot of momentum built off of that fight and the results of that fight. Where is he going to move? What makes more sense? Rumors also circulating about him maybe fighting a Gabriel Flores to stay busy. What weight class will he be in? He's still a WBA 130-pound champion. What does he do with that title? Can he leverage that in a way that benefits him and ultimately puts him in the best position? We'll talk about that. Right, guys? We'll also talk today about Shakur Stevenson and his options. We know negotiations with him and Teofimo Lopez have been all Twitter platform bound negotiations, nothing on paper. Teofimo doing what he does. Now learning that Teofimo may in fact be a free agent, no longer underneath the Top Rank banner, as Teofimo's looking to find out where he fits in. Is Teofimo pricing himself out of his prime years? Is he putting himself in a position to where the years he could be tapping into his peak athletic ability, to the most attention he's gotten in his whole career, bad, good, or in between? Is he capitalizing off this in the best way that's going to benefit his career? Trolling, Shakur Stevenson seems to be more focused on making a fight, and rumor has it that although Turki Al-Sheikh expressed lack of interest in working with the Teofimo brand, that he was even entertaining helping Shakur Stevenson make a super fight with a Teofimo, and still Teofimo remains difficult, still being a difficult person to negotiate with and making these big fights hard to come by, right? Is it about money? Is it about A-side, B-side privilege? Is Teo just scared of making the big fights? Where's the reservation coming from? Where's the motivation to make the big fights happen? We've seen Teofimo move past Devin Haney, now looking like he may be moving past Shakur Stevenson. Where is Teofimo trying to go with his career? Exactly where is Teofimo at mentally? And we've talked about this on this platform, the psychology of these fighters and how this game is 70% mental, 75% mental, 25% physical. Where is what a lot of these fighters are dealing with this mental aspect. When you look at Keyshawn Davis, you look at Gervonta Tank Davis, you're looking at Teofimo Lopez, even recently Daniel Dubois, heavyweight, ex-heavyweight IBF champion, losing his fight against Alexander Usyk. You're watching his whole team just fall apart at the seams at this point. What's that all about, right? And how are these hurdles being handled by these fighters. We're watching it, right? I mean, we're watching it in real time. That's one thing about the social media space. That's one thing about this internet. We watching everything in real time. It's not hidden like it used to be years ago where maybe you had to read it in a newspaper article or wait for your favorite sports channel to cover it. No, it's right here in front of our face. We're watching it happen in real time. And we got to talk about how it's affecting all these fighters. We got big fights coming up. And I feel the space isn't talking about the big fights as much as they're talking about all this drama, right? I mean, why? What's going on in the space? All that and then some, and whatever else comes up, right? And then, of course, we'll open up the panel to the usual suspects. We'll be up here talking about all the latest and greatest news in boxing, getting perspective and context from you guys. And obviously, I'll be sharing my contacts as well. Let me go ahead and go down the list right now. I see a lot of people in the room. If you are in the room, leave a message in the chat room. Let me know that you're here. Remember to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take an opportunity to go ahead and do that as well. Let's go ahead and do a little roll call in the building. Salute to CJ 1977 in the building. Says Claymore, salute back at you, CJ. Good to see you in the building, man. Hope you are in good health and a good space. Big Tim 4551 in the building. Salute to you, family. Good to see you in the building. Salute. Mine, yours in the building. Says two of it. Salute, Clay. Okay, all right, mine, yours. No doubt. Khalil World, peace, Queen. Salute and good morning to you, Queen. Good to see you in the building. Eastside Easy in the building says salute the good guy. Claymore Rain was good, chat. Salute Eastside Easy. Fly Frequency in the building with the big salams to me and assalamu alaikum back at you. Walaikum salam. You know what I mean? Back at my brother, my Aki. You know what I'm saying? Freaking fire in the building. And Conquest says, thank you for being logical. I just listened to the dumbest ish I've ever heard in my life. We got to be logical out here, man. We got to be practical and critical thinkers, man. And learn to, appreciate and resonate and empathize with another person's position and the things that they're trying to get done in their life. I know we like to be the all-seeing oracles of people's lives and give them the advice, and we want them to follow the things we want them to follow. But at the end of the day, perspective is everything, man. And being able to take a moment to step out of your shoes, out of your comfort zone, to look through the eyes of somebody else just for a moment might make things make sense of a lot of things that may be confusing or don't make sense to you in that moment, right? Shout out to N Conquest for the $2. Appreciate the super chat, man. And guys, feel free to put some color in the chat, man. Any support the channel can get, we benefit. We put it right back into the channel. You see how we're moving with it. So any type of support, color in the chat is always appreciated. Mike Too Shady in the building says, what to do, Clay? Salute, Mike Too Shady. What's good with you, fam? Deloney Fam Sports in the building says, salute back at you, man. Coach Eddie ATL in the building. Coach, did you see the interview I had last night with Brian Norman Jr.? Senior, talking about everything relative to Junior's career. And as the funny thing is, I've noticed, and I've talked about this before, but opportunity to have conversations with people like Brian Norman Sr. are blessings, right? Somebody who's on the ground, currently the trainer and father of the current WBO welterweight champion of the world, who can give you perspective on the whole landscape of boxing from being in the space. When you get somebody like that on your show, it's an opportunity to get information and to be educated, right? It's an opportunity to ask questions, to hear directly from the horse's mouth, to get their perspective. Now, last night we had about over a 3-hour live with Brian Norman Sr., a great talker, loves to communicate, great sense of humor, and obviously a very opinionated person in the space. But taking the opportunity to sit back and allow him to get things off his chest, to break things down, to get right to his facts and understanding. And what I realized was nobody's really lying out here. I mean, you got your people who are trolling from time to time and moving and pushing narratives and painting pictures, hitting stories with broad strokes of their paintbrush to get you to think a certain way. But there's also the fact that we have to understand that from a person's point of view, they can only give it to you the way they see it, the way they understand it, the way they're getting the information. And they can only give it to you as it's coming to them. And respectfully, I think it's crazy to watch content creators cussing out, getting into arguments, accusing fighters and trainers and things of that nature of ducking or lying. I don't see the reason for it. I don't see it as productive, and I see it as a potential wasted opportunity to actually get that person and allow that person to speak their point. I mean, you're allowed to and free to react to it as you see fit. After the interview, I think would make more sense. But during that allocated time that you have with that fighter, with that trainer, with whoever it is that you're choosing to interview, the opportunity is wasted, in my opinion, to take that opportunity to voice and over talk and voice your opinion and confront the person you're interviewing with all these things, and really just losing out on the opportunity to actually hear how they feel about certain things. And as we let Brian Norman Sr. talk last night, you got to understand who he is. And like most fathers, you know what I'm saying, a journey that he's been on with all of his children, you know what I mean? In particular now, Brian Norman Jr., now bringing him to the status of being a champion, traveling the world, being a road warrior, being the underdog for a large portion of their career at this point, and now being potentially the most dangerous fighter in the welterweight division, maybe even the number one welterweight in the division right now. If you want to make arguments and bring up Mario Barrios, or you want to bring up a Rolly Romero, or, you know, other fighters that are in the division, and make it an argument about those champions, feel free to. But at the end of the day, the journey, the experience, the lessons are priceless. And we got to take an opportunity when we have those guys on these platforms to give them an opportunity to communicate that. Whether you agree or disagree with their state. Great interview yesterday. Great conversations yesterday with Brian Norman Jr. Ray Davis in the building. My host says, always in the building. Salute to Clay in the chat. Make sure we're hitting that like button. Yeah, take advice from Ray. Smart guy right there, giving y'all some good advice. Let's make sure we're hitting that like button as we step in the building, man. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications if you haven't done it. Share the channel as well. Helps the channel and the algorithm. Mr. Big Play Bray in the building said, what's good, boxing family? Clay had late to work this morning. Great interview last night. Yeah, man. Yeah, and we stayed up late. That's a fact. So I woke up this morning very tired. You saw the thumbnail just went up about an hour ago. Really didn't even get to really structure anything, really just plan on kind of freestyling today and hoping that my panel saves me today, right? Today's one of those days, man. Yeah, man, salute to everybody, man. Coach ATL said, yeah, I seen it, brother. Good interview. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So where do we start the conversation? We can speak directly to the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Jaron Ennis for a minute and Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, this love triangle situation. Let's pull some real perspective of what we're seeing here. There's one aspect of it where the focus can be on Jaron Ennis and what he's doing, and, you know, how he's not on code. If people feel like doing that, they can do that. I'll tell you, me personally, I'm not so worried about that. I do feel like at times, as a community, I'd like to show unity, but not in those kind of situations. That can be an example of one. If Jaron would have said, you know, I'm not going to spar with Canelo Alvarez or whatever have you, in order, you know, I'm supporting Terrence Crawford, that'd have been nice, right? That could be considered nice. You know what I mean? That's a form of unity. But I do believe that more so, what we need to look at more than what Jaron Ennis did is we need to look at what Canelo Alvarez did. Why? Because Canelo Alvarez is the one who's actually getting into a fight with Terrence Crawford on September 13th. And the question is, by bringing Jaron Ennis into the camp, what was he looking for? What does it mean on a psychological level? Where's Canelo Alvarez? I think one thing's for sure, two things for certain. Canelo Alvarez is not sleeping on Terrence Crawford. I think bringing in a Jaron Boots Ennis shows that his team is dialed in and they understand that they have a real test in front of them. I remember last year around this same time, or maybe even a little longer than before last year, we're talking about maybe even while the Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford fight was up in the air as far as the rematch was concerned. People thought that this fight was absurd, right? An absurd fight. That people believe that Terrence Crawford couldn't go up these weight classes of 168 and even give Canelo Alvarez a competitive fight. Weight classes for reasons, things of that nature. And where are we right now? Where we are right now is that the fight was actually been made. And now you're hearing all these different pundits in the space give opinions on how this fight may go. So a lot of people are picking Canelo Alvarez, but, you know, interestingly enough, a lot of people are picking Terrence Crawford. And what does that mean? It means that special fighters can do special things. And I think the mere fact that we're watching Canelo Alvarez bringing a Jaron Boots Ennis into his camp speaks to that. It speaks to the idea that he's not looking past Terrence Crawford. He understands that on all of his fights that he's had, his most competitive fights that he's probably been in has been in with the cerebral fighters, right? With the Errol Spence, with the Danny Jacobs, with the Floyd Mayweathers, right? With the Austin Trouts. These fights were his most competitive fights. Even Caleb Plant, before Caleb Plant's conditioning became tested and he wasn't able to hang there in those last championship rounds, there was an argument to say that Caleb Plant was getting the better of Canelo Alvarez in many different aspects of the fight. Even Amir Khan, who fought Canelo Alvarez before he was finally clipped and put to sleep and stopped, there's an argument there to say that Amir Khan was winning the exchanges, the boxing game, the sweet science of the sport. We were leaning towards Amir Khan doing a great job at really giving Canelo Alvarez all that he can handle. And I think Canelo Alvarez is acknowledging that strength that Bud Crawford brings to the ring. There's intangibles that we aren't aware of. We don't know how the power is going to translate for Terrence Crawford all the way. We're not sure how the strength is going to translate. The whole size part of the conversation is a legitimate part of the conversation. And more than likely, I'm not saying more likely, I'll tell you in real time, we won't get the answers to those questions until they get inside the ring. Now, so why did Canelo Alvarez bring Jaron Ennis into the camp? Is it because Jaron Ennis is a big guy? Is it because he's strong? Is it because he punches hard? What is it? Is it his athleticism? What is it? Was it the cerebral approach? Does he believe that Jaron Ennis can mimic Terrence Crawford's strategy and the way he thinks? What was Canelo Alvarez trying to get an understanding of when he brought him that? Or was he just simply trolling Terrence Crawford just by bringing in a Jaron Ennis, maybe, a trigger mechanism, trolling Terrence Crawford, trolling the fans out there, pissing people off, stirring the pot? Maybe it was all the above, right? One thing's for sure, two things for certain. Canelo Alvarez is moving, in my opinion, like a fighter who is taking the challenge he has in front of him very seriously. And I think he should. And it makes sense that he would. And I think it was a smart move to bring in Jaron Ennis. Maybe Jaron Ennis being the closest to a Terrence Bud Crawford. But in real time, is there anybody who's like Terrence Crawford? I think Terrence Crawford's a very unique fighter. And one thing about Terrence Crawford is the adjustments are going to be in play with him. The ability to run into problems, adjust, and get around those issues with solutions. A plan, B plan, C plan, fight on the back foot, fight on the front foot, right? Attack the body, combination punching, timing, speed, athleticism. He brings it all. Switch hitting, southpaw to orthodox, all these different things. Which Terrence Crawford is a Canelo Alvarez preparing for? We also know that Terrence Crawford can sit in the paint and get caught up in exchanges. Terrence Crawford is also shown to be prone to back out a little bit and, be prone to get hit with some right hands. Getting hit with big right hands by Canelo Alvarez is not a good look. So look for Terrence Crawford to show up in the way that he does as far as being unpredictable. Right? We got to look for that. And look for Canelo Alvarez ability to make adjustments, because I think that's a place where Canelo Alvarez may be a little rusty in. When was the last time we watched Canelo Alvarez make adjustments in the ring? When was the last time he had to really do that? As of late, if we watch Canelo Alvarez, he's sitting in a high guard. He's walking his opponents down, cutting off the ring. He's attacking the body to take away the legs of his fighters. He's punching on shoulders. He's punching through on blocks. He's letting off combination shots. He's punching with bad intentions. And he's been able to do that with all these fighters across the board for a long time. The Canelo who fought a Danny Jacobs or an Amir Khan or an Errol Spence or Floyd Mayweather is a Canelo back in the day Canelo. This is an older Canelo. Father Time is undefeated, a less athletic Canelo, more flat-footed Canelo. Is he going to be more on his toes? And as creatures of habits, is that a good thing for Canelo Alvarez? I think it's going to be intriguing in multiple ways on how this fight works out. Right. And I think that's what we should be more focused on is Canelo Alvarez is taking this fight very seriously. There's no question about it that Terrence Crawford is taking this fight seriously. I mean, he has to be taking it seriously. He's been asking for this fight for so long, preparing for this, knowing the odds, knowing what he's facing, knowing Canelo is supposed to be the bigger man, the stronger man, the harder puncher, knowing the challenges are there on the table. The question is, what is Canelo Alvarez doing adjustment-wise in his camp to make this fight what it needs to be? And I think we're seeing that by him having a Jaron Ennis in the building. Now let's get on to the Jaron Ennis part of the conversation. Jaron Ennis now being confronted with the quote-unquote code. You hear this circulating through the whole space. I've been listening to channels and everybody talking about this code. Some people feel like the code is mythology, urban legend, isn't real. What code are we talking about? This is boxing, right? And then you have other people who are a little bit triggered seeing that, and you hear people say things like, would somebody from the Mexican community who had the status of Jaron Ennis and true ability to help Terrence Crawford prepare for Canelo Alvarez, would we find him over there in Terrence Crawford's camp, pictures of him, showing out and, mimicking Terrence Crawford and doing all those things in order to help, mimicking Canelo Alvarez in order to help Terrence Crawford? I don't know. I'll tell you this, though. This community, in the African-American community in the boxing space, from the outside looking in, and I'm saying from the outside looking in because I put this channel together, really started talking boxing talk on this channel about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years. Let's say 2 years ago. I think January actually be a legitimate 2 years, but let's just say 2 years ago, right? Let's round it about, right? One thing's for sure, two things for certain in this boxing community is the amount of bickering, the amount of tearing down, the toxic space called the YouTube community in boxing. If I don't hide my feelings about it, that I put a lot of the responsibility of where the boxing space is currently on the back of the shoulders of a lot of content creators who I think could have spent more time, and currently, if they're still creating in the space, should spend more time on building up this side of the pond's sport, the American boxer, and what they bring to the table. And I find that, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the pettiness, there's almost no extent that any fan in this space or content creator in the space be willing to go to in order to tear down a fighter who they feel like is against their one fighter. And I don't think we benefited on it as a community at all. So it doesn't shock me that seeing Jaron Ennis make a move like he did, that people would look at it the way they did. And listen, I understand. I can't emphasize that enough. I resonate and understand. But I do think there's a reality that this code doesn't truly exist in this space, in my personal opinion. What code? Question mark, question mark, question mark, right? What code are we talking about? At the end of the day, this is as close to not a team sport as there probably is in sports in general. And I still have gone on record to say that I think this is a team sport, a large part, right? That a large part of it is the preparation, getting ready for a fight. What the fighter does outside the ring is a total team sport and team effort, right? 100%. But inside that ring, and when we're talking about the career, when we're talking about that box rec, when we're talking about what shows up there is one fighter and his record, what he's been able to accomplish versus what he hasn't been able to accomplish, and against all his peers that are in that division. Do we forget at times that Jaron Ennis is a fighter who's in the same division as Terrence Crawford? Outside of the idea that Terrence Crawford is at 168 now, getting ready to compete against Canelo Alvarez, he still holds the title at 154, Jaron Ennis at 154. On any given Sunday, Jaron Ennis and Terrence Crawford can be lined up for a fight. So what loyalty in this space, in this competitive space called boxing, does a fighter like Jaron Ennis actually owe a Terrence Crawford? Not much, right? But once again, going back to, I understand how triggering it can be, because for a lot of people in the boxing space, this is exactly what this situation is. This situation is Black versus Mexican, African American versus Latino. This is what this is. And it's not new. This is what the sport has always kind of been. The biggest fights, we watched Floyd Mayweather always try to make fights with the Mexicans and the Latinos, making the biggest fights with the Marquezes, the De La Hoyas, the Miguel Cottos, always trying to have that clash of nationality in the spirit of making the biggest fight and having the biggest impact on a sport, getting the most asses in seats, selling the most pay-per-views. This has always been part of the game. No different now. But I understand, and I'll keep on saying that because I don't want to dismiss anybody's point of view in wanting to see that unity, because you see it in other spaces. You see it. When Ryan Garcia popped on his performance enhancement drug, it was very hard to find somebody from the Mexican side of the conversation who was on their platforms tearing down Ryan Garcia for his antics, for his use of performance enhancement drugs, for for a lot of things I feel like they could have been critical of, they chose not to be. They stood in camaraderie. I actually had fans come up on this channel who were of Latino descent, Mexicans, who literally left my channel because I was talking about Ryan Garcia and performance enhancement drugs. I was talking about Ryan Garcia and his antics, his mental health issues. I was talking about him and using IVs and regular things that you talk about in sports. And they stood in camaraderie, not only to confront me on those thoughts, but also to actually boycott me and walk away from me. Right. We always know where they stand. Our community, not necessarily the same, because in that same situation that I'm talking about, we watch our community celebrate Ryan Garcia and scream and turn Devin Haney into the villain and say there's no excuses. We don't want to hear it. You got beat up. You're not who you say you are. We don't care about what Ryan Garcia did. You know what I mean? Ryan Garcia only had whatever milligrams or kilograms or nanograms of whatever substance in the system, and how could this affect his performance in the bigger picture? Right? We're watching right now in real time in the past couple of weeks, a jacket get put on Terrence Crawford as far as insinuating that this man is probably using performance enhancement drugs. What in the world? This while he's inside the ring with a legitimate, proven cheater, somebody who has popped on performance enhancement drugs. So the community has always shown its true colors when it comes to that. Very crab in the barrel mentality. And in a situation like this, Jaron Ennis may indeed be catching a stray bullet, right? He may be catching a shot that may not really be intended for him and may really be intended for the community in a whole. Just to say, here's another example of us not being able to hold it down together, and us always looking out for self and never looking out for the community, unlike the other communities that are in the space. It is what it is. What is the reality? The reality is Jaron Boots Ennis has a career, and he has every right to do whatever needs to be done that's within his power to do to make sure his career is as successful as it is. He's trying to build his brand right now, and he's under scrutiny right now himself for taking on this Lima fight. But we know that in 2026, a lot of fights, big fights, are expected for Jaron Boots Ennis, title fights. We know how 154 is. We know the division is a straight up hornet's nest. Of course, Jaron Boots Ennis, in my opinion, would and maybe probably should take advantage of an opportunity to spar with Canelo Alvarez, pick his brain, get that opportunity to be in there with that caliber of fighter is going to add to his toolbox, going to add to the wrinkles to his game and make him the best fighter he can be at 154. And that's where his responsibility is, to himself and to his team, clearly. Bottom line at the end of the day. But I always keep it real with you guys and say, I resonate. I really do resonate. I empathize. I understand. I think it's a legitimate, argument or a legitimate, what's the word we're looking for? A legitimate gripe, right? That fans have, in my opinion, with our space. I think Jaron Ennis just happens to be the one catching it. He's the one in the crosshairs of it. And, you know, that's part of the game. And I think that's why a lot of these fighters don't dial into their social media that way. Jaron Ennis is not somebody who's running around from platform to platform doing interviews, especially in this particular space where fans will confront you and call you a duck right to your face and call you a liar right to your face and, you know, tell you what to do with your money and have you having conversations about how much you've been paid on fights, how much, you know, things that you shouldn't have to talk about. As a fighter, we can answer or not we. As a fighter, they can answer questions, right? They're there for that. But, you know, to be in arguments and be confronted and grilled, let's be honest, right? To be feeling like you're being completely broken down by the prosecution, what fighters are signing up for that, right? It is what it is. So listen, you got to have thick skin in this game. And I'm sure Jaron Ennis has built some pretty thick skin in this game, dealing with the rumors and speculation that's been made about him, his career, his willingness to fight certain fights, the dog in him, which is amazing to me because a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Jaron Ennis was probably one of the most feared fighters in the welterweight division in general, right? Couldn't make any of the big championship fights, couldn't make any of the unification fights. Quite frankly, was probably the biggest liability to any fighter's career in the welterweight division. But just that quickly, we fast forward to a present time to where he's actually being looked at as somebody who's scared or ducking smoke or doesn't want to fight. It's part of the game, and we're here for the whole entire Right. Ultimately, we all can only hope that these things manifest into the biggest fights possible on these cards, right? Let's have a moment. Let me go down here and communicate with the chat a little bit, see what's going on in here. Oh man. Go Get the Money says there's no code. I agree with you, man. No code. No code. I mean, would it be nice to have a code? I mean, why lie to you and say no? Of course, it would be nice to have a code, right? It would be nice for the community to stay together and represent and bring that understanding to the boxing space. Bring that understanding to other fighters to understand like this guy's bringing this kind of crowd with him and they're going to support him no matter what. But I think the reality is, once again, there's never been a code. And what code are we asking for in this boxing space? This is kill or be killed. May the best man win. It's always been that. It's always going to be that. And quite frankly, there's an argument to say that it should always be that. It is what it is. Benny Bronca in the building, a.k.a. the Cardanan, says, go watch Canelo slipped 8 of Bivol punches in a row standing right in the pocket. Yeah, once again, yeah, at the end of the day, we're going to watch the adjustments, right? Terrence Crawford has a lot of video to him and his team have a lot of fights, a lot of data to process. They have access to many different views of Canelo Alvarez. They're going to watch that Danny Jacobs fight with Canelo Alvarez. They're going to watch even the Jermell Charlo fight with Canelo Alvarez. They're probably going to watch the Erislandy Lara fight. They're going to watch all these Austin Trouts and fights that he was in. They're going to watch the Bivol fight. And they're going to try to formulate a game plan that brings the best out of each one of those fights, and obviously what Terrence does naturally. So the triangle theory is all we have to go on. All we can do is compare old fights to what it could be now. But this is a situation where there's intangibles that we just won't, boxes we won't get checked into the night of fight. Guys wake up in the morning and they're old all of a sudden. This is part of the game that we're in. So I definitely understand where you're coming from. If Canelo comes indifferent and not like a bull, he's going to mess up. He's going to mess Bud's game plan up like Madrimov did. And I agree with you that, Madrimov was another good example. Now, I'm sure that Canelo Alvarez is going to be looking at that. But Madrimov exerted a lot of energy, stayed on his toes, jumped around for 12 rounds. And let's not forget, ultimately, when it was all said and done, Terrence Crawford figured out Madrimov and was able to show separation in those championship rounds. And although Madrimov's conditioning was good in that fight and he was able to keep up with that game plan, he wasn't able to adjust to Terrence Crawford's adjustments. So is Canelo going to be able to maintain that type of approach with Terrence Crawford? That kind of pace that's going to be needed. Terrence, I believe, brings in the speed, brings in the athleticism, and probably brings in an edge on the cerebral part of the conversation. So Terrence can use a lot of this to his own advantage. We got to see how it ends up happening, right? Let's continue to go down there. Let me see. Pugilism in the building says it's discipline code. That's the only thing that's universal. Nothing has been broken. These fighters are boxing disciples. I agree with you 100%. No doubt. Benny Bronca says Boots is 10 years younger than Crawford. His feet are faster, reflexes, and the youth is there. Why Canelo wouldn't get Boots? 100%. 100%. 100%. And, Boots brings the Boots may bring the knowledge that Terrence Crawford may have, but does he bring the wisdom? Operating on the idea that knowledge is more of a tool, wisdom is more of how you use the tool. Does Jaron Boots Ennis bring the wisdom behind that knowledge that he can offer a Canelo Alvarez to give Canelo Alvarez real context and perspective as to what he needs to do to prepare for a Terrence Crawford who can adjust on a dime, right? He can see failure, run through a situation, and completely adjust in that, in that moment. He can do it, and he can completely force you to adjust. And where's Canelo Alvarez when it comes to that ability to adjust? I think there's arguments there to say that Jaron Ennis obviously is benefiting Canelo Alvarez in a huge way in this fight, but there's also an argument there to say that I hope he's not lulling him into a false sense of security and have Canelo Alvarez become a little too one-dimensional, a little too confident in his approach and not bring all the wrinkles to his game. Because Canelo may have to may have to dial back the clock of time just a little bit in order to make this fight with Terrence Crawford what it needs to be. Because the Canelo that fought Dimitri Bivol, who no matter how good Dimitri Bivol is, I don't think is as fast as Terrence Crawford, right? as good as Edgar Berlanga may have looked to you guys, he stood there. He wasn't giving Canelo any real pressure, no real angles, no real looks. I was forcing Canelo Alvarez out of his comfort zone at all. What fighter did Canelo Alvarez fight within his last 3 to 5 fights that prepares him for this fight that's in front of him? Maybe a Caleb Plant, maybe a Caleb Plant. It is what it is. Salute to Ross Scott in the building. Salute to you, man. Good to see you, man. See you in here, man. Brandon Bronca says Devin uses IVs, and if he's using the IVs, he's clearly compliant with whatever rules there are. They've never popped him on it, so he may have to deal with the fact, whoever fights Devin may have to deal with the fact that Devin knows how to use IVs legally. Right, that's part of the game. AK Crowder, salute to AK Crowder. Billion says, blessings, brother Claymore. Blessings back at you. Go get the money, says Benny Bronco. Relax. You riding the F out of boots. Relax. Give yourself a break. Pugilism says, this is progressive work. Liberal border war culture versus conservative based homegrown culture. If you want to create something, some entertainment claims. Okay, I like that, Pugilism. I actually like that. I like it, man. Let's see here. Going down the list. Anything here? Troll in the building. Salute to Troll in the building with the pregnant LeBron James avatar. And that says, yes, Benny, Boots doesn't owe Bud anything. They aren't sparring partners. They don't share camps, trainers, etc. Better off giving Boots his flowers and be like, Nello needs the best training partners he's got. 100%. 100%. I think it's only fair to do that, man. I do think it's unfair to hold Boots to that standard. I think across the board, we don't hold all our fighters to that standard. I just think it's unfair to hold Boots to it. But once again, resonating and understanding and not dismissing the perspective and understanding of seeing that triggering energy inside this community, because so many examples are there of this community not holding each other down on multiple different levels in this game. And that's just one more, right? In Jaron Boots Ennis' defense, he's not there for all those other situations. He doesn't wear the black eye of the boxing game. He only should be responsible for his own action. And, how much has we seen Jaron Boots Ennis, quote unquote, be off the code, right? Selective reasoning will have you putting a jacket on him that he doesn't deserve to have on him. But I understand the outrage, the outpour, the outcry for unity in the space. Shout out to Benny Bronco, says another damn thing. It's okay for people to ride Bud and Devin's. It's all gravy. This boxing is getting like the rap game. Fruity is out. Yeah. I mean, fans is good, man. Fans is good. My thing is, fans are awesome. Fans make the sport. Fans fill the buildings in. Fans buy pay-per-views. Fans are needed in all sports. But I do think that this particular space, boxing in particular, doesn't have access to the ESPNs of Fox Sports and doesn't get that representation the way it probably deserves it. I think the community has a lot more influence in this space than other spaces. I think they need the support. I think these fighters need the support. As I stated with Brian Norman Sr. last night, we've got a whole American crew of fighters getting ready to go out to Riyadh season and compete at the highest level to make their biggest paydays. David Benavidez is going over there to go fight Anthony Yardy. We know what's going on with Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr., Abdullah Mason, Bam Rodriguez. These fighters going over there need the support of the community. And being so dialed into another fighter to the point to where you're tearing down or hating on a fighter get to his opportunity makes you a hypocrite when you confront the same people that will confront you on your favorite fighters, taking an opportunity that they don't resonate with and trying to defend it with saying that this person has, is making money, or this person is, moving their career in however, whatever these arguments are out there. Makes you a hypocrite when you're not able to go ahead and facilitate or give back that same respect, live by that golden rule, and respect all these fighters and understand that they all have a plight in the journey and they're trying to get somewhere, right? It is what it is. Go get the money, says, I'm a boxing fan and I box as well. Don't gotta glaze. Boots is a good fighter, but he's not trying to be great. He had plenty of opportunities. His career is not over. That's all I can say, right? It's not done. It's a marathon. It's not a race. That's all I'll say to that. Go get the money. It's a marathon. It's not a race, man. Ross Clott says, this era boxing fan is a joke. Any fan mad about what Ennis is doing? Some abbreviation for something that's probably horrible, right? Or don't know ish about boxing. I bet you that's what it means, right, Ross Clott? Don't know ish about boxing. Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is, man. Let's see here. Going down the list. I'm just trying to catch up a little bit before we move the topic. Let's see here. Anything interesting here? Let's see here. Let's continue to scroll down. A lot of interaction. A lot of contribution inside of the chat here. Salute to Sonny Augustine in the building. Colorado Spock in the building says Crawford will expose a false narrative of Canelo's greatness. Inshallah, and I'm saying that's what we'll see, man. I think we're going to see a special fight one way or the other, you know. Terrence Crawford, man, I love to see fighters get the fights they want to get. Well, hold on. Let's articulate this in the right way. Fighters who really want to fight each other make the best fights. I hope that captures a little bit of what I'm trying to say. I'm sure the right person could break that down and turn that into something I don't want it to be. But, you know, when you watch Jack Rafferty and Mark Chamberlain fight this weekend, it was a great fight. It went to a majority draw. But why was it a great fight? Because both fighters put it on the line and they wanted that victory. They wanted what came with it, and neither one was going to budge and forfeit their space. You were going to have to take it from them. And that fight ended up being a fight of the year candidate, in my opinion. A very good fight. Same thing to a degree with the Joanna Celez fight. Very competitive fight. A lot riding on that fight. Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez are great fights because both fighters have a lot to lose, right? Either one of them have their own to gain, right? Terrence, I would argue, has way more to gain, but to lose makes a big difference. So we know when we see Canelo Alvarez bringing a Jaron Boots Ennis into the camp, it should bring excitement to your heart. It should bring even more intrigue and even more of a need to see the fight, because you understand that this guy's pulling out all the stops, leaving no stones unturned, and he's preparing to bring himself and bring us the best Canelo Alvarez we've seen in years. And that's an exciting thing to look forward to. When you see Terrence Crawford sitting inside of an ice bath, right, doing a cold plunge, you know how serious he's taking the fight, because if you follow Terrence Crawford, you know that he hates the cold plunge. He finds that to be the most uncomfortable thing. He's talked about in other interviews how he doesn't do the cold plunge. But in this particular situation, he's moving into spaces he's never been before to go and accomplish things he's never accomplished. You see them pulling out all the tricks and everything they can do in order to be the best version of themselves. That should make you excited as a boxing fan in real time. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, let's see if Bud is able to be that special fighter that a lot of us think he is. And let's see if he can show the world that ain't nothing to it but to do it, and don't sleep. And until you see it, you ain't seen nothing. Nothing, Linda. Nothing. Let's see here. Benny Barker, Peaches, and Canelo. You where the new accounts come from. You know these clowns, but not Charlo. Let's see here, but not Charlo. But anything, this fight like MJ avenging the Pistons of 1991. This is Canelo's toughest fight, and the fans not giving Canelo enough credit. Okay. So let's continue to move the needle here. We talked about this Jaron Boots Ennis, Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Bud Crawford situation, and where I'm at with it. This just makes the fight that much more interesting. This just highlights Canelo Alvarez's focus and how dialed in he is on making on winning this fight. And Terrence Crawford I'll land my plane to say that Terrence Crawford operates great in these environments. He loves these environments, the doubt, the preparation, the treason, if you want to look at it, the extent that people will go to try to stop him, I believe probably fuels him, his confidence, and fuels his determination and his resolve to show and prove all those people wrong. So once again, adding to the intrigue of this the intrigue to this fight is all I see happening, right? Let's move the needle and continue to talk about, and let's move into Gervonta Tank Davis. Let's talk about Gervonta. Oh, man, what a topic Gervonta Tank Davis is always been and has always been and will always be inside this space. As long as this guy is actively fighting, he will be one of the best topics to talk about. As one content creator once said, if you're not talking about Gervonta Tank Davis, then you're not talking about American boxing, because he is a face of, a lot of people would argue, the face of the American boxing space. And Gervonta Tank Davis in the past few days has made a very, very radical move, some people might say. I mean, even his own fans are in disarray trying to process and metabolize this move that this guy has done. Trying to make sense of it all. What in the world? What are we looking at? Rumors were going around for months now that there was a negotiations happening in the background with Jake Paul. Speculation, content creators across this space, fans were just completely upside down, upset, and felt like we were putting the biggest jacket on the back of Gervonta Tank Davis, treating him unfairly. Why in the world would he fight a Jake Paul? Couldn't imagine it. And I could resonate with a little bit of their approach because it never made sense for a 135-pound champion in Gervonta Tank Davis, a pound-for-pound fighter, to entertain getting in the ring with somebody who's used to operating well above 200 pounds, standing about 6 foot something, whereas Gervonta Tank Davis is probably a solid 5'3", 5'4" on a good day. What in the world could Gervonta Tank Davis find in this fight? And Jake Paul campaigning for the biggest bags of money literally was this close to making a fight happen with Canelo Alvarez. This was real. Jake Paul was not scared to admit this or expose this. Conversations of Jake Paul's face of boxing status become more and more real, right? More and more undeniable that this guy clearly has the ability to facilitate the biggest paydays for a lot of these fighters. Anthony Joshua in the conversation, and yes, Gervonta Tank Davis. So where are we right now with this? I can only share my opinion, right, guys? All I can do is tell you guys how I feel about what we're looking at. I feel Gervonta Tank Davis has been tapped out the game for a long time. I feel his fans don't listen to him enough. I feel like anybody who's paid attention to Gervonta Tank Davis in real time understand that this should not surprise him at all that he made this fight with Jake Paul. There's actually a little bit of a relief from me personally that Gervonta Tank Davis made this move. I wish him the best. Hope he makes all the money he can, and I hope, generational wealth affects the money he makes here, affects his children's. Hope he changed the whole entire trajectory of his timeline, his family's trajectory line. But the reality is Gervonta Tank Davis has been tapped out of boxing for a long time. The fact that the space has been pushing on Gervonta Tank Davis to make the biggest fights, we've seen content creation spaces turn into toxic spaces to where boxing cannot grow. Where anytime Tank Davis's name is brought up and anything is requested of him, it brings indifference in every chat across the space, across the board. Content creators can't take their eyes over Gervonta Tank Davis defending his position and him not making these fights, that they can't even see the rest of boxing, not even watching boxing anymore. Your favorite content creator may not even watch boxing today. The guy who's giving you boxing news, the guy who's giving you a perspective on what's going on in the boxing space may not even be watching boxing. And I think that's diabolical. So yeah, if Tank Davis is going to take an opportunity to get what he came to get, and if his next move is going to be retirement, all power to him. I think his influence will never be forgotten. What he did do in the space will always be cherished. His fans can always celebrate him. But ultimately, we have to respect his wishes, and the idea that he doesn't want to do this sport anymore has to become something real. And I think that's what we're seeing here. When we watch Gervonta Tank Davis make a fight with Jake Paul, to me, it's time for a reality check for a lot of fans who focus all their energy. And, we're watching them. We're watching them deal with that reality. We're watching them trying to make sense of it all. A lot of them, a couple of them are still defending it, still putting it in position. But ultimately, we have to acknowledge, if you're a real boxing fan, that there's a new era of boxing being ushered in. There's a brand new era of boxing being ushered in, right? Like it, don't like it, indifferent, however you want to look, there's a new era. And boxing is about to be bigger than it's ever been, in my opinion. Right? It's about to be bigger than it's ever been. Why? Because the platforms are huge. Netflix, maybe Amazon might step it up, right? The Zone, the pay-per-view model is being attacked right now and ripped apart and thrown in the trash. Fights are going to become more and more available to the casual fans. It'll be easier for you to see these fights. Gervonta Tank Davis cannot be the end-all, be-all of your boxing experience as a fan. It doesn't make any sense. We have to get past it. Gervonta Tank Davis is clearly, right now at this point, disenchanted with the sport, to be respectful and nice about it. To just give you an inconvenient truth and what I believe at this point is a fact based off of what Gervonta Tank Davis has always stood on and communicated to the space when he chooses to communicate. He's letting you know he's done with the sport as you know it. As you know him in the sport, don't expect much of Tank. He's going to go get this money with Jake Paul. The fight is going to be a very interesting fight to watch aesthetically, to see a 5'3", 5'4" guy make a fight with a 6'1" guy, 6'2", 6'1", 200-pound, 190+ pound guy. It's going to be an interesting fight to look at. It's going to be an interesting spectacle to look at. But ultimately, that Tank fan base could be used in a way better way in this boxing space, in this American boxing space today, that could support fighters like Abdul Wahid Tank, my guy Abdullah Mason. There we go. Abdullah Mason can use your support. Lamont Roach could use your support right now. Shakur Stevenson could definitely use your support right now. David Benavidez could use a talking about right now, right? Devin Haney could use some support right now. Brian Norman Jr. can use support right now. Xander Zayas can use support right now. The new and upcoming young fighters, the up-and-coming champions that are coming. And what are they coming to do? They're coming to check the box on legacy. Let's go back to a place in boxing where that made a difference. And dare I say the taboo word in the room, yes, when belts mattered. When the greatest and the best champions in the world and the best fighters were champions, when they were on the same page, or if they weren't champions, they were pursuing to be champions. I watched a video of Gervonta Tank Davis doing an interview. This is when he had that short haircut. This is back in the day, and they asked him what his future moves are going to be. He communicated that he wanted to unify the division. He wanted to become undisputed. And undoubtedly, in my mind, it's hard for me to believe that as Tank Davis was coming up, getting into boxing, amateur boxing, going into becoming a professional, that his aspirations wasn't to have that black belt, red belt, Ring Magazine, WBC title, and this IBF title here around his waist, and to be unified and undisputed and undeniable amongst his peers. And in the boxing space, there would be no argument about who the best was. At some point in time, he affiliated all of these belts as the biggest accolades he could get in the space. Things change for him clearly. And that's okay. But we're heading back into an era to where these things matter. Structure is about to become more regular. You're going to start seeing it more and more often. Mandatories are going to start being honored. Fighters, B-side, quote-unquote fighters, will get opportunities to show to the world that the only thing that was holding them back was the politics of the sport, that on a skill level, they were able to compete at the highest level and probably were better than your favorite fighter. And we need to embrace that and be ready to celebrate that. Be ready to celebrate that when it comes to fruition. And I think we're here in that time. And that's what Gervonta Tank Davis versus Jake Paul represents to me. I don't have time to judge Gervonta Tank Davis and say he's making a mockery of the sport. Jake Paul's making a mockery. I don't have time for that. It doesn't change anything anyway, right? It doesn't change anything anyway. We're spinning our wheels in the mud.
Yeah, okay.
Salute, Ray. Playing this crazy game of trying to regulate and dictate what another man does with his career. A wise man once says, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. That's not to disrespect. That's the most respectful way. I think that's the most respect you can give a man, is to allow his words to hold the weight, to represent his point of view when he's speaking. Probably one of the biggest ways to disrespect a man is to consistently and constantly dismiss his ideas. You know what I mean? So if you truly want to, go ahead and respect Gervonta Tank Davis, then respect him in real time. He's not here for this sport the way he was at one time. We will embrace Gervonta Tank Davis if he chooses to spin the block and decides to come in and prove what he says he is, what his fans says he is, and make the biggest fights. We'll be more than happy with open arms to embrace him back in this space, understanding the pedigree that he brings to the table. Of course we will. But at the same time, we got to respect him when he makes his decision. And I think this Jake Paul fight that's being made really is a statement in multiple ways outside of what people are saying as far as the mockery of the sport. No, it's speaking to Gervonta Tank Davis's position in this sport. Respect it. How you doing, Ray Davis? Salute.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm laughing at Ross like throw my hat with a manga hat. So I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, I can see with the beard growing in and the red hat and the vote for Pedro shirt. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't even know where that's from, by the way. But
where'd that come from? In my mind, it's rolling around in my mind. Where'd it come from?
I forgot. Listen, I was about to say his name. The movie, with the dude with the red hair, carrot top looking dude. I forgot his name. It was named after him, where he went to college and stuff, and his uncle was like in school, and it was doing the voting.
Oh, Napoleon
Dynamite.
That's where it came from. Yup, Napoleon Dynamite. Salute to Kobe in the building, man.
Somebody bought me the shirt. I thought it was cool, so I always rock it every once in a while.
Yeah,
let's my, you know what I mean, muscle show a little bit, but no big deal. He said he got the shirt too. Ross Clark got the shirt. That's why sorry, Ross. When you come up here, you got to wear it though, Ross. But yo, man, to make a sense out of this is everything what Tank said. Like everything we've been saying. Let's just say you said it, to start it off. But we've been repeating everything that he said in his interviews and taking it for what it is. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people make excuses and try to tell you what he meant, not what he said. And it's clear when we talk about GTD that he means what he says. I mean, he even told a fan, right, who said he loves him, another man telling another grown-ass man that he loves him, just shut the F up and be a fan. Like, just be a fan of the sport. Just watch boxing. Stop. Like, you can't hold a man's nut down, excuse my language, and just think that he ain't going to want you to get off him. Like, and that's what he's trying to tell you. Like, just be a fan, man. You know what I mean? There's nothing new, nothing crazy to go out there and do extra. A lot of people really have the mind set that I am a fan of certain fighters, which I'm not. I just play the cards right. And maybe it comes off as that. It's fine. It's just education. I advise you sometimes if you educate yourselves on fighters and fights, it can lead you to understanding and make you seem like a fan, but it's not a fan of that fighter. I'm a fan of the sport. And that comes a long way. And it comes the same thing with Gervonta. I've always been a supporter of Gervonta Davis. Always. I just see the roadblocks that have always been there. I spoke on them. I never did it to dismiss him or disrespect him. Never. You can't even say that I did. Same thing when I talked to about Boots, I talk about Devin, I talk about Shakur, I talk about any of these guys. If anything, Shakur is the person I like the most out of everybody that was at 135. Mm-hmm. You already know that I was a fan of Errol Spence Clay. I never sat back and threw that out there like that. I've said it, but I've never threw it out there. But I don't hold no grudges for him losing. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And I think that people get so wrapped up in their feelings over grown-ass men. I think it comes down to them being emotional. And I call it the soap opera, you know what I mean? What's it called? The real husbands of boxing, or the real men of boxing, whatever you want to call it, the real housewives of boxing, whatever you want to call yourselves. No disrespect, but that's what it seems like. And people like the crash outs. Ultimately, they don't even care for the sport or about the fighters. They really like more of the crash outs. And when Gervonta Davis says something, they're willing to put the words in his mouth for him and say what he meant instead of taking it for what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know what I mean? And shout out to Benny Bronkin, who's basically saying that, a lot of fighters are moving the same way in their own way as Tank as far as chasing the money. And I don't know about necessarily the fights that are being made all the way, but I understand. And I think, like I said, an example, boxing has so many things going on at the same time. We can allow fighters to do them and move on from them. If you're looking for a box to get checked for you, if you're looking for a legacy box, if you're looking for a great fight, there's other fights being made. I moved on from the Tank Davis conversation a long time ago in that capacity. A lot of these conversations that we end up when it becomes hostile or indifferent or whatever have you about Tank, it's probably more so arguments with the fans who want to sell you an idea or want you to change your position on maybe how you rank him or amongst the greats or amongst the best that are doing it in the space. And they don't like the idea that the boxes aren't checked, that the expectations haven't been met, that the fights that need to be made in order for you to come to that decision haven't been made. But at the same time, it's okay. He's still special. He's still a big influencer in the space. This era is not the era it is without a Tank Davis. Whatever you're talking about for the last 5 plus years of boxing, how could you talk about it and not talk about Tank Davis's influence on it? But we can move on, and we should move on. We got to move on. Right. We got to move on. And American boxing needs us to move on and needs us to support it because we're watching it transition into a certain space. And I'm in the belief that if we don't catch up and we don't pay attention that in real time, boxing can be taken away from you guys in a very crazy way. Your favorite fighter may have to continue to go overseas and compete as a B-side fighter or a visitor in another country in order to make the biggest fights. Because as long as 60 to 90 plus thousand people are filling up arenas in these other countries to see these fights, and only 10 to 15,000 are showing up over here, the argument becomes more and more difficult to make for David Benavidez to fight in Vegas when he could probably be fighting in Wembley in front of 90,000 people getting paid 10 plus million, 20 plus million dollars to make these great fights. Yeah. The reality is the fan base has to show that we still exist and that we're still here for the sport and that we're still interested in the sport, the whole sport, and that boxing has a place in this ecosystem, that it has a place next to football, next to basketball, next to baseball, next to tennis, next to all the other fights that are on national television being watched all the time, 70 plus games, you know what I mean? Leagues that are going on. We have to show and prove. And this fight on September 13th, Ray, I think is a step in the right direction. I think this fight means a lot. This is America's opportunity to show out for American boxing.
Capitalize on
it. It's going to be a legitimate argument and a litmus test for anybody who's putting into the production behind this as to what their next move may very well may be on how they approach the sport.
Right. I agree 100%. I just want to touch base, and I'm actually going to say what this first for what you just ended with. I mean, it's not just America, man. It's the Western Hemisphere. We on this hemisphere or this side of the world, we don't conduct the same fan base and give the same likeness to boxing as a sport. We give it to individuals. Nothing wrong with that because, you know, everyone has a favorite something, right? So it is what it is. But let's get back to this money thing. So we talk about, you know, I mean, what the money has done to the sport and what it has taken from it. There's nothing wrong when you get into the sport to have goals, right? Everyone's goal is to be the number one guy, rather that be, I mean, the breadwinner, the champion, whatever the case is. Sometimes it goes hand in hand. If you look at all sports, there's individuals and even team sports, because that guy wants the biggest paycheck that's on that team. He wants to go to that team that's going to pay him the most and value him the most. And while he's there, he wants to try to bring a championship under that banner of that team to say that he was the reason why that team won a championship. So even though we think of it as a team sport, there's still individual backgrounds to it. So boxing's no different. Yes, you have a team, you have coaches, you have managers, you have promoters, or whatever the case may be, stablemates, people to help you train. They're all part of your team. And as they're part of your team, your goal is to go out there to be the best, to go out there to win a championship, to go out there to make as much money as possible so that your team benefits. And when your team benefits from it, and you could say you're the reason why your team is benefit, you are the MVP. But that doesn't take away from what legacy is. But if we're going to say legacy, let's move the needle to legendary, okay? Because as that status changes to legendary, what holds more value? Be a legendary fighter or a legacy fighter? Because you can always drive for legacy. You can always drive for those things that hold weight, and you can say, okay, as the Cardina said, or Benny Blanca said, yeah, you know, money is the legacy. It is driven. Yes, to a degree. But you know what makes legacy? When your names are in the books for the belt you hold. Because that becomes legendary. That lasts forever. That's never going to change. People are going to always make more money. Sooner or later, you're going to have people that are nobody's making $1 million. Why is that? Or thousands of dollars. Why is that? Because the price goes up. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Shout out to Fat Joe. So it always goes up. The needle's going to move. So you're going to have a new kid on the block that's going to make this money. But being a legendary fighter, somebody that has legacy in that status, and they're going to hold those belts, and those belts are going to resonate with history, and it's going to always be in the books, that's going to say something. An almanac doesn't go everywhere. Matter of fact, I don't even think people use almanacs anymore. But you know what they use? They use stats. And holding belts is a big stat. So you got to look at it that way and take that into consideration when you talk about legendary and legacy of fighters.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Shout out to Benny Bronco with the $5 holler in the building. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the support, man. Says legacy is the wealth that was obtained in the past, left to someone, and the long-lasting, impactful events that take place in the past of a person's life. Yeah, I agree, man. And and I see you highlighting the wealth, man. You know, and that's acknowledging. I think legacy for the fan is maybe different than legacy for the fighter. We may meet in certain places to where we have a common ground and a common understanding. But for me, the legacy of a fighter as a fan could never be the wealth that they built up, because that doesn't help me or benefit me in any kind of way. It's going to be about what they did in the ring and the accomplishments they were able to have. Gervonta Tank Davis's legacy is a legacy that's beyond boxing. He's a man, he's a father, he's going to live a long life after boxing. His legacy as a man will be judged accordingly, and what he's able to leave his children and monetarily, knowledge wise, wisdom wise, all these different things are going to be in a big factor in his legacy. In the sport of boxing, though, as far as a Hall of Fame is concerned, as far as what boxing has there to accomplish, this is a big part of the legacy as well. Make no confusion about it. In the coming years, 10, 15 years down the line, when Gervonta Tank Davis is officially retired in a real way, living his next life, there will be conversations about this era of boxing and what he did in boxing. And please do not be confused or misguided in believing that what will come up in the conversation of his legacy may be the fights he didn't make and why didn't he make them. There will be a microscope put on that. There will be analysis and there'll be some thought put behind in trying to understand why this wasn't made. And he will be judged accordingly to however those historians at that point are able to put it in perspective. He'll be judged accordingly, and it won't be anybody really talking about the amount of money he may have made. I mean, they'll talk about it as far as maybe what he made with Jake Paul and Ryan Garcia, maybe saying he made some of the biggest shows. These things can come up, right? But I think more so they're going to be looking at who he fought. Who was the best? When those conversations come up, how do we know how to talk about it with a Gervonta? How do we know to say he was the best? Because when people say he was the best, well, who was the best in that era? Well, Shakur was one of those guys. Devin Haney was one of those guys. Keyshawn ended up being one of those guys. Teofimo Lopez was one of those guys. Vasily Lomachenko was one of those guys. Well, did he fight any of those guys? Well, no. Why weren't those fights made? Well, he was the A side. He was the guy who could make the fight. He chose not to make it. What kind of argument do you make at that point to say that he truly was the best in that time period? This is part of the legacy. It just is what it is. But any fighter, not just for Gervonta Tank Davis. You know what I mean? But when a fighter speaks his truth, we should hear him. Shout out to Anton Zegler in the building. Sends me the salams. Walaikum salam, family. Good to see you in the building. You
owe me push-ups and 4 other people. Yeah. I want my push-ups.
Yeah, Anton. I got a funny feeling that Tank is not fighting Lamont Roach next. That's what the word may be. You know what I mean?
Shout out to Anton Ziegler. But I still want my push-ups.
Have a chiseled chest. We're going to start calling you.
500 push-ups, bro.
Chiseled chest. How you doing today, Chisel Chest?
What's going on? Peace, bro. That's what I'm
Salute to you, Anton, man. Salute, man. It is what it is. So yeah, man, that's where I'm at with that, man. A spectacle of a situation. That's what it's for. Bringing eyes to the sports. I'm probably way more interested in what that undercard is going to be looking like, Ray. And knowing that Jake Paul has a history of putting on decent undercards when he's making these kind of fights. Right. I'm hearing rumors of Alicia Baumgardner and Amanda Serrano potentially being on that undercard. Great fights, great opportunities for those fighters to fight on the biggest platforms with a lot of viewership. So that's one thing that also in the history books will be there is Jake Paul's influence on this new era of boxing. How do you feel he'll be looked at as far as what he did in the space, influencing it, even including all these fights, these what people call circus fights, just in general, his impact on the sport? Will he be revered for his accomplishments?
I don't dislike as much as people are like so pushed back on the Jake Paul Tank fight. I don't dislike the move. You know what I mean? It's a fan friendly sport, right? And it's a fan friendly approach by both fighters or Jake Paul himself. He's always been fan friendly, right? He's always trying to get the biggest and best names in the ring. Obviously, he's trying to bring the attention to the fight, but there's a reason behind it. And this is why I gave him credit about 2 years ago on this channel, or a year and a half when we started, when I said Jake Paul is bringing boxing back. A lot of people thought I was crazy. The reason why I say that is because it's not just him putting eyes on the match that he's doing or the main event that he's a part of. It's him bringing eyes to the sport, such as he did with women's boxing, such as he's doing with people that he brought in as, unfortunately, H2O at the time, and then he lost to Lucas Body, and we wouldn't know who Lucas Body is if it wasn't for Jake Paul. Tellez fight that just happened over the weekend, we wouldn't know these things if Jake Paul did not put himself in the promoter's shoes as well as a performer. Those things matter. And I think when we look at it in the sense of allowing people to grow in the sport, aka a la Turkey a la Sheik, it helps the sport. You know what I mean? Holding people back or making them marks in the sport because you don't like what they're doing or how they're moving or what they're doing with their business is their business, and you don't like what they're doing, then what you tend to do is you tend to push people away from the sport. And as we're seeing, we have sides of the street, we have promoter supporters, we have fight supporters. We don't have everybody in conjunction on saying that, listen, this is good for the sport. And the main people who are saying it, believe it or not, listen, we are small people in the game, y'all. I'm not trying to be funny. We're just ants on a hill. That's it. We're just climbing up. We're just trying to get to the top. But there are people that are already flying above this hill, which are really big analysts, boxers, pundits, things of that nature that are real deal journalists and working for networks. And these guys are saying the same thing that we're discussing about Turkey Al Sheikh, PBC, things of that nature. They're putting it out there to the fact that this is what Jake Paul is doing. MVP is a good thing for boxing. Especially if Soriano and Bumgarner fights, people wanted to see this fight for years. I think it's a little past its prime. I still think Bumgarner might get slept, but
listen, it's gonna be.
I like the girl. Let me tell you something. I'm married, but you know what I mean. Nothing wrong with saying hello. But
no, I think the fight's gonna be competitive because both of their fighting styles make fights, and I think their styles clash to give us something really entertaining.
I just think that the harder puncher and the more durable fighter, I think, is Soriano, and she's been through a lot. She has experience, and this is where we talk about experience matters, right? Bumgarner has had her phases where she's been great and she's looked normal. And I think this is going to be an opportunity for her to show out. I would love for her to prove me wrong because I thought she was the next big thing, but as we can see,
the dance partners make a difference, right?
Right.
Sometimes the dance partners bring the best out of you, man. Sometimes you need that,
and that's what I'm hoping for. So I'm willing to put that on my back. I got Soriano in a fight like that, but at the same time, you know what I mean,
it's an opportunity for Alicia Baumgartner to make you
believe. Yes, sir. You see how she wanted to go after the GOAT. So she felt that she can beat the GOAT. I don't see why she can't beat Soriano. But hey, we'll see what happens. But I just like the moves of the sport, man. I think Jake is doing a great thing, and I think this is a good thing coming with the Tank fight. It's good for business. Like I said, it's all good for business. Same thing with Bud and Canelo, good for business, especially them being in an arena. I'm sorry, in a stadium as opposed to an arena. Bro, they're already at like 100,000 seats going to be sold. They're going to open stuff up left and right, and Raider Stadium is said to be sold out. You know what I mean? So listen, it's going to be crazy.
There was a point in time where boxing was kind of like just doing this thing and we understood what to expect from it. Then one day somebody named Roy Jones said, Method Man and Redman, can you do me a favor and walk me out to the ring? Right? He came out and Roy Jones danced, came from somewhere, some steps in the top as Method Man and Redman were singing the Blackout song. And he was walking to the ring and he was dancing to the ring. He had a tuxedo on, right? And it brought eyes to the sport. It brought casuals to the sport. He was able to transcend a time period of boxing to where hip hop was being played on the radio as people was walking through. The sound system would have Mike Tyson playing Public Enemy or whatever his favorite song was at that time on his way to the ring, Rock Him or whatever. But there was a difference made when he brought the rappers into it. Was he playing with the sport? Was he dismissing the sport's integrity? Was he compromising the sport's integrity? Was he doing any of those things? No, he was using his mind to market, to innovate, and bring eyes to the sport that he felt like he wanted to build up. This was for free fights, right? This wasn't even for the pay-per-views and things of that nature yet. These fights were still free. This is called evolution. Yep. Jake Paul, there's arguments out there to say that, well, the people who watch Jake Paul fight aren't fans of boxing. So they're only there to see the spectacle. And once the spectacle is gone, they'll leave boxing. Well, look, I'll say there's an argument there to say that a large portion of those people will. But I think there's also an argument to say that there will be a portion of those people who will see something that catches their eye on these undercards, and they will become fans of the sport. They'll follow the sport. They'll follow those fighters. They'll become fans, and it helps the sport get bigger.
Right.
Yeah. In a space that like we're in today, Ray, is there any argument that we need any type of infusion of energy that we can get in order to get this boxing where it needs to be back in America.
Nope. I'm gonna tell you why. It's nothing. It's nothing that anybody can do but just continue to be fans and grow it. Like share the energy, just like you share a post on Facebook. Share the energy of the fight that you got. I mean, it doesn't always have to be combative or argumentative. Sometimes it's just giving a simple opinion or giving a thought or sharing something that's liked about the sport and letting people grow with that, man. You don't always have to be right about a subject. You know what I mean? I think that's where the confusion happens. I think everyone goes into these conversations trying to be right instead of sharing a thought, sharing an opinion, giving an idea. You know what I mean? Those things matter. And I think we can grow the sport by sharing these things and bringing it to the casual space that's out there that watches sports. You know what I mean? I think ESPN has another boxing thing coming out. I don't even think it's not going to be top ranked, but I think it's like ESPN boxing or something. So listen, it's still growing, man. It's still a sport to have. And yes, to answer your question, Clay, the answer is no. I think we don't have to do much more. We just have to contribute more on that point. Not so much of having to make what I'm saying is we don't have to, because I want to be clear, we don't have to do like too much. We just have to contribute to what we already have. And I think that will do for itself.
Yeah. I think it is what it is, man. Jake Paul will be recognized for what he did. I think he's a great promoter. He's using his likeness to bring attention to what his movement is. Tank Davis, listen, man, he's doing what he thinks will benefit him, and we just have to respect it. As far as respect him having the freedom to do with his career as we see fit. I do think it is a legitimate argument out there for people who wanted more. I'm one of them who thought more of Tank, as far as thought I think he has a lot to accomplish and a lot that he's leaving on the table, a lot that he's leaving on his plate. But if that's not his fancy, listen, he's going to eat what he likes and he's going to leave the rest. And what he's leaving behind is fans' expectations of him and the legacy in the sport as far as the traditional aspect of legacy is concerned. It is what it is. Hey, man, at least, he's going on a big platform to be part of a spectacle with Jake Paul. Right. And Jake Paul, hopefully uses this momentum to continue to move forward with what he's doing. He had 2 great cards over the weekend, Friday and Saturday. Great cards, great fights. Yoenis Cellez was one of the fights on those cards, you know what I'm saying? On the zone. He continues to show improve. He continues to put fighters in great position to have great opportunities. There was a great heavyweight on that card that showed up. There was obviously the Yoenis Cellez fight. We have a new interim WBA champion. That being said, we can also segue from here. Do you mind holding it down for 1 second?
Yeah. I'll continue the conversation of what took place this weekend was great. I mean, Clay, you even asked us to do our homework on it. So, watching these fights, I can't name every single fighter, but I can tell you right now, some good fights. Even Friday night was a banger. Saturday night, Saturday in the afternoon, we had the fights with Queensberry. We seen that fight take place, and then we had the fights on the evening. So, like I said, boxing is growing. As far as the United States goes, man, there was some good fights that actually took place on Saturday night, and I actually liked those fights. I actually fell asleep during them. I had to catch them on the replay, but just the fact that we are here to get boxing to where it needs to be. Matter of fact, that's a good point. I don't know if you're saying AC is in Atlantic City. Oh no, I see what you did. My bad, Anton. Let me say it correctly. I don't want you correcting me, but Atlantic City. That's another place that needs to bring boxing back. Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, needs to bring boxing back. I'm not saying these guys don't host fights in their areas, but they can actually make it better. They can bring them back to where boxing was, to the larger venues that we had on the East Coast. And I think that's another thing that we don't have is if Jake Paul can tap into those sources of Atlantic City and more of Madison Square Garden, because he's been there a lot, that'll help out with boxing in itself, like just solidifying the East Coast travels.
Yeah, no doubt. Salute to everybody in the building. 41 people in the building. Please take an opportunity to hit that like button if you haven't done so. Please help with that. That helps with the algorithm. Share the channel so people know that we're talking boxing on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. Hit the notification so you're getting those notifications when we're doing these shows. But yeah, man, a lot of things happened off the back end of these fights this weekend. I mean, I love also the fight in the UK that happened. I thought Jack Rafferty and Mark Chamberlain was a great fight. Ended up going to a majority draw. Clearly, they're probably going to have a rematch. But the fight was a great fight. Like I said, when people put integrity and they put legacy and they're thinking about those things, it manifests into some very competitive fights. And we definitely saw that this weekend. And on the card, we saw fights on the both nights with Jake Paul, who showed that, you know, he could put his boss hat on, step out of the light, and allow his fighters to get the center stage. Segueing into specifically a WBA fight that happened between Yoenis Tellez and, goodness gracious, I want to pronounce this guy's right. This guy's name right.
Whatever his name is.
I know it's Baharu is his
Babaru, or whatever. You can say it yourself.
I'm gonna try to find it right now. Abbas. This guy steps into the ring, 17 wins, 9 KOs, 1 loss, you know, and really came out of nowhere, right? I bet you anything this fighter was supposed to be almost a stepping stone for Yoenis Tellez. Interestingly enough, Yoenis Tellez, I still believe he is a PBC fighter. Am I wrong or right?
Isn't he a PBC fighter? I'll look it up. I'll let you know in a second.
I think he is a PBC fighter. Am I tripping? Let me take a look at his profile here.
I thought he put on Pro Box, but we can. Yeah.
Is he a pro boxer? Well, I've seen him on a PBC card before. I think he became interim champion fighting our guy. What's his name? Goodness, what's his name?
It could be wrong.
What's my guy's name? He fought Jermell Charlo.
A lot of fighters on PBC do fight on Pro Box, so it's possible that, you know,
right. Julian Williams. When he fought Julian Williams, wasn't that on a PBC card?
Maybe.
Might not have been, huh? Might not have been, because it might have been the same.
I think that might have been. I'll be honest with you. I think that might have been DAZN. But
I mean,
we're gonna find out.
Jake. Okay, it says right here, Jake Paul fighter Tellez. Okay, all right. So that fight right there was, in my opinion, was probably supposed to be a stepping stone fight.
It was on DAZN. I was right.
It was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, when you just took what I just said, and I was like, I think it was on DAZN.
Oh, you talking about this past fight this weekend?
No. The Julian Tellez fight with Williams.
Okay, got you. Okay. No. So, look, we got a new player in the game, right? And on the back end of that information coming out, we got information and news that the WBA was making a big power move. Basically making 2 very important statements. One of them being that Terrence Crawford, when he goes into the ring to fight with Canelo Alvarez that night, that would end his status as a 154-pound WBA champion. So, in fact, Abbas Bahrahu would end up being elevated to a full WBA champion. But another nice piece of information that came out, and I'm sure a lot of fans in the space were very appreciative of this information and getting excited, but I don't know how excited we can really get. We'll talk about it more deeper right now. But they took Jermell Charlo and said they're going to put him in as a mandatory to fight for that title. What do you think of that information?
I think that was crazy. And now that he's saying that he's going to be the mandatory, they forcing him to fight. It looks like he's trying to call out Errol Spence from the looks of things, and to get himself in the picture of that. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, this doesn't turn out to be, you know, Earl waiting to make a decision. They have to find another fighter for him, because it looks like they want to have a touch-up fight or a real, as they would say, tune-up, right? Because you got to come back from a long layoff. You want a tune-up fight. So it looks like he may have to take a real tune-up before he goes for this opportunity. They are trying to make him put him in the picture for this title to get him back in status. But in my opinion, you want me to be humble about it? Yes. This is the same sanction body that took my first belt from me for fighting Canelo. Matter of fact, before I even fought Canelo, before I signed the dotted line, they took my title because I wouldn't fight him, and I was moving up to fight somebody else. So if that's the case, guess what I'm gonna do? You keep that belt. I'm gonna go a different direction, and I'm gonna prove myself. I'm gonna come back and revisit this when you have no choice but to give me that fight. Because we'll see. I think they're just trying to save face with him and give him the opportunity. But hey, man, it is what it is. Yeah. I just said hate. Whatever. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Oh, somebody else. But I really would like to see what's going on, man. Like I said, I don't care how it goes. if he gets the opportunity, or Earl gets the opportunity, if they fight each other. If not, and someone else goes a different direction, we'll have to see how it works out. Ultimately, we're going to see somebody in the ring with him soon for the title. Rather it be fighting for the title because he has the interim and they force somebody to fight him for it, or he gets emailed the belt and it'd be Charlo or Earl or so another fighter getting into the picture for that title defense for Baharu, whatever his name is. You can say it better than me. Abbas. I'll start with Abbas.
Baharu. I'm giving this shot. I hope I'm saying it correctly, respectfully. Listen, man, it's going to be interesting to see Jermell Charlo make his way back into the ring if that's what he plans on doing. I mean, there's also been social media obviously showing him kind of hinting towards the space, and he's been doing it really for like the past 3 to 6 months, kind of hinting to the space that he may return. One of those fighters who ever since the PBC separated from Showtime kind of went into the wind. We just don't know what happened with Jermell Charlo. And, anticipating the biggest fights from him when he returned, all his belts were ultimately stripped for him and vacated or whatever have you, being that he was the undisputed champion at 154 pounds, the last undisputed champion at 154. I've got no problem with him getting placed into a space or opportunity for him to get a shot back at one of his titles. I do wonder, though, how much he even cares to jump back into that conversation. He may be more focused on his paydays. There are arguments out there to say that Jermell Charlo stayed out of the sport because the paydays weren't there, right? That he was waiting on a big payday to come in. I don't know that this fight turns into a big payday for him, Jermell Charlo and Barros. You know what I'm saying? Barros, whatever his name. You know what I mean? Salute. Alvaru.
In my opinion, that's why I think they're trying to get the Errol Spence fight going on. But Earl's was rumored to be going to 160, so that wouldn't even make sense anyway if he's rumored to go to 160 and not going to 154 instead, which could be the case also. So then that means that we're going to find Jermell Charlo probably fighting someone else. Who else in that picture could we see him fighting?
Well, before you go and dive deep into that, so he puts out a little bit of social media and communicates a little bit of energy towards Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. also has been in the social media space, kind of showing him sparring in the gym. Champ Side, salute the Champ Side, covered that a little bit and showed him getting active. And now it's looking like, the rumors or the speculation is seemingly bringing Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence in a situation that we could particularly see a fight between them. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, Earl was the one that said he don't care about the friendship. You know what I mean? They stablemates, but he gonna fight him, and DJ was gonna be in his corner. That made to me. You heard Jermell saying that he didn't want to fight him. You know what I mean? They're like brothers, and he ain't gonna fight his brother. We heard that before. And that being said, Earl's like, man, ain't no brothers in this shit, man. It's about the money. We can always be brothers later. And I think maybe that rubbed them the wrong way, but it was kind of weird because they were still cool, right? During the Bud fight, you seen Jermell in his corner cheering for Earl, saluting Earl and everything. And then after that Canelo fight, it's just like they both just went away in their own good graces. And every once in a while, you see something pop up from one of them, and you're expecting something to come out of it, a fight or something, and nothing happens. So if this does happen, if this is the fight, it's going to be a good fight because, one, they do know each other very well, and two, it's going to help both of their careers because it's going to put them on tracks of doing something great for the sport, putting them in that position of fan base superiority. Because I think they're both likable fighters, and they both bring different characteristics and bring different sides of energy. But at the same time, they're both strong, gifted, talented fighters that people both like. I like both of the fighters myself. I think they're both decent enough, and I think it'll be a good fight to put on. Especially them both coming off of losses, by the way.
Yeah. I don't put my hopes in it until it's really, I don't. Oh man, the Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo and just those fights coming out of the PBC have been like a dog with no teeth. Just no bite. Right. They just don't hold that weight anymore. It's becoming a lot of clickbait. It's becoming a lot of gaslighting. And I don't know if this is going to be followed up with any actual real action. Yeah. And I'm just kind of where I am with it. So I don't want to get my hopes up. I'm just waiting, just like everybody else. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. I don't know how the fight would look. I don't know We can get into the controversy of them both, being trained by Derrick James at one point in time, being from the same stable at one time, and them bumping heads like this. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, cannon fodder, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is, right? Like, we can be gaslighted by it, but being that boxing is so active right now with so many conversations happening for real fights that realistically could happen, this one right here probably be low on the totem pole as far as where I rate it as far as big fights that I'm looking for.
I agree. Literally, that's what before you told me hold that thought. That's where I was going with it, right? I was telling you, like,
oh yeah, he's going into the next fight.
Yeah. I was like, look, we probably look at if Jermell does come back. Let's see if he first announced it. Number one, number two, it's plenty of people at 154, and they're talking about Earl going to 160. Like I said, they're talking about him skipping the whole division because he's been out so long and he's got to acclimate, and he probably have a tough time making 154. So. There's so many things that's being put out there. We don't know what to believe. We don't know what's true. All these things are put out there for a reason, whether it's true or not. But it is healthy to think these things if you're willing to put that in your subconscious. But as Clay mentioned, like, until it happens, it's just us just speculating, and it is what it is.
Yeah, it really is what it is. I want to go ahead and segue into Lamont Roach just a little bit. Rumors circulating about Lamont Roach potentially with a lawsuit. I don't know how real that is or isn't, but I think it does bring up an interesting point to say that, somebody did get burned in this situation. Somebody really, there's credibility here that's been lost from Gervonta Tank Davis in a way of, with Lamont Roach, and maybe obviously with his fans as well, who also were in the same space as Lamont Roach, anticipating this rematch with Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach more than likely has invested time, which is probably the most, expensive thing that he invested. Our time is so valuable to be used wisely. But also, obviously, resources were allocated behind camps, sparring partners, things of that nature, dieting, just getting in the mentality of a fighter, and, just to be kind of like pushed to the side the way he's been pushed to the side so blatantly in the public, disregarded as far as what he invested in believing this fight was going to happen, and just how simply Gervonta Tank Davis moved on to his biggest opportunity in Jake Paul. Where are you right now on the Lamont Roach conversation? And also, I mean, who'd you like to see him? What seems to be realistic for him? Like, what does he go for?
I'm so torn in this conversation because he's still the active WBA 130-pound champion, right? Super featherweight champion. Him being that says a lot to where he should be in his career. Like, is that when you say wasted time, that time he wasted, he could have took on a title defense with his mandatory. He chose not to due to the fact that he was waiting for the Gervonta Davis rematch. That in itself could have caused some problems, legal problems with him himself, because that guy's been waiting as well. Then you have the fact that if he stays at 130, he does drop the belt, and who would he fight next? There's a ton of fighters to actually to really get out there and fight with. I think Schofield would be the number one guy I would put in the picture, in my opinion. I think that's the guy to chase or to get in the way of, because that's your guy that's there for the title, right? You're a champion and you want to go right up to the top. The best way to get in the way is to beat the guy that's at the top. There's no interim champion or anything like that at the WBA level at 135. So why not take out the number one fighter? Matter of fact, why not even put an interim on a line of some sort? Request an interim to be put on the line for that, because there's so many reasons why that should happen. Other than that, you have Lucas Body, who's made an interest in coming back into boxing. And he was a interim at one point. I don't know where he is now, or Eastern, some type of champion in the WBA. But to see where he goes with that, that's another guy you could put in the picture. I could see him getting his stakes up, and that's a good fight for him to have, because Lucas Body, though he was getting the brakes beat off him, he had the knockout of the year, in my opinion, over H2O, and that itself says, hey, this guy just brought, he did something that he wasn't supposed to do, and Lamont Roach did something he wasn't supposed to do. And that being said, that makes a matchup in itself as a unexpected situation of events and them fighting. So, Yeah, absolutely. It could be. It's a lot of different things. I mean, Joe Cardina, which a lot of people hate that fight, but that's another fighter. I mean, I'm looking at guys in the top five across the sanctions, and I mean, Andy Cruz he's about to have a championship opportunity, so I don't think we even look at him in that sense. But then Mark Rosario, a guy that was down at 126, moved to 130, got a belt, and now is up at 135. That's a good fight to take on. The guy moved with you, so I mean, it's a guy you probably were pursuing or trying to fight before. You never fought him. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mark Rosario was a WBC champ before he lost at 130.
So beat arguably, not arguably, factually on paper, he beat Gary Russell, right?
Right.
For that, but we know Gary Russell had injuries. It doesn't matter. He won that title,
right? And that's a good name to put in the ring with him at 135. There's a lot of fights. He's not going to resonate the money though that he was getting, and plus
I think that's a big question though, right? With Lamont Roaches, where is he at mentally? Like, does he feel like is he only aiming for the biggest amounts of money? Is he willing to take a step or two back into his regular position that he was in and build his brand back up to where it's supposed to be? Or does he feel a little, does he feel like he should, did yesterday's price dramatically change for him in his mind?
No, I think he with that fight he took on with Gervonta Davis has put him into a position where he should be making more money. Will he have to take a step back? Absolutely. I think there's no choice. And I think that's what he's hurt. He's mad about his brand getting hurt because he put himself in position to make more money and to ask for more money during these fights. And now he has to go back to where he was, living the humble life per se, to be out there and making whatever he was making or a little bit more, just slightly more, as opposed to what he could be making if he fought Tank, let's just say, and won that fight, or had another draw, or even put on a performance where he lost in a decision. It changes the whole complexity of where his money could be to where it is and where it may go down. So yeah, absolutely, he has some bones to pick. Now, should he sue the lawsuit thing? I don't know.
That's probably
I haven't read the details of it, so I don't know if it's about money, if it's about the holdup, if it's about the weight. Like, there's so many different ways of looking at it. I don't know, so I'll wait till I hear more things before I speak on it. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that I think there's some big opportunities out there for him, without a doubt. I think there are bigger opportunities than other opportunities, and if he's doing triage based off of the opportunities, if that's what's controlling his next choice, if he's thinking about these things when he's making his decision, then clearly I think there's a path to a Shakur Stevenson. We've seen Richardson Hitchens reach out in interest of making a fight with him as well. And the question is, how does he move and maneuver into that direction? I'm hearing rumors of Gabriel Flores being a potential stay busy, get in the ring type of fight. I saw an interview with Senior, and Senior kind of communicated that, they weren't trying to hold up anything. They were trying to get back active. They understand that somebody like Lamont benefits is off the activity. And, the longer he sits outside the ring, the more difficult uphill battle it becomes to get him back to where he was before. He fought about 5 months ago. And, if he waits for Shakur Stevenson, who's not going to be available until early 2026, he's looking at, 8+ months, right, out of the sport. And that's not something he's looking to do. His money doesn't get better by sitting here and doing nothing. Although I've heard he's well vested in his boxing gym, and he has a promotional company and fighters and things of that nature, that he builds some sort of residual income off of. But Lamont Roach has some choices and decisions to make. And I do agree with him on the idea that he was slighted in this situation. He definitely was slighted. In the same way the Gervonta Tank Davis fans feel slighted. Some of them don't. Some of them, resonate with, more happy for him than disappointed in him. More happy about the money he can make. But a lot of fans, put a lot of they put a lot of eggs in that basket. They argue with a lot of other fans. A lot of crazy conversations happened in the space over him. And they feel a little, and they might rightfully so feel a little slighted that, the one time we asked you to do something, we've always supported you in everything you've done. And this time we've asked you to make a fight. And not only do you not make the fight, but you go in a complete direction and make the people who we called or deemed your haters right, and gave them leverage on talking down to us. So a lot of people are burnt in that way. Lamont Roach joins the club as far as being gaslit and believing that something was going to happen that as we look at it, as it's being broken down and dissected, it looks like from the beginning it was understood that Tank was going to make this fight with Jake. That, there's an argument there to say there was absolutely no intention from the beginning to make this fight with Lamont Roach. I can understand the position or the rumor circulating that there may be some lawsuit or something involved in it. I don't know how much teeth a lawsuit like that would have, though, right? I don't know that Lamont Roach or Gervonta Tank Davis had any real obligation to honor any real agreement with Lamont Roach. I mean, we can take it back a little bit of time and say that there was a point in time where Terrence Crawford was in negotiations with Errol Spence and walked away and went and took an opportunity to go fight a David Avanesian to make money on BOK Prime. And although the whole entire space was very indifferent with his approach to that negotiations, felt like he dragged Errol Spence along and kind of, aged him out a little bit by having him sit outside of a camp or outside of this fight, outside the ring. What could Errol really have done, being that there was really no contract? Everything was verbal and everything was understood, but not backed up with documentation, right?
Right. But I think the difference is if there was a lawsuit and it is about the credibility or his money getting hurt, it is a truth to that, because I mean, if they actually do the numbers on fighters that fought Gervonta prior and before, and after, they'll show a value in how the money budged once they fought him and how they were able to make it and capitalize on their fame for fighting him. Whereas he sat stagnant waiting for a rematch, and he could have took on a fight where he could have made more money per se in his next fight. But regardless of, that's the consensus, right? Not even just me saying this. This is what the space is, right? He makes your biggest payday and he brings you your biggest bag. So if that's the case, that means your value goes up. So with that being said, that will be the reason for him to really say that he's hurt by it, especially if he has to take 2 steps backwards in the pay scale. He has a legitimate reason. But at the same time, he put all his eggs in one basket. So, he has nobody really to blame but himself, because he should have looked at opportunities prior to that. Instead of calling out all the names that he was calling out from division to division, whoever he wants to fight, that was a big name. He should have just took onus on it and be like, look, hey, if we're not going to make this happen, just let me know. I'm moving forward. Let's keep it moving. That's what it really came down to, in my opinion, on that situation, to say the least. But who are we really going to hold accountable for that situation, Clay? Like, are we going to hold him accountable? We're going to hold Tank accountable? That's for the legal system to figure out, not us. You know what I mean? And how he wants to pursue it with his lawyers.
If he does want to, it could still be rumors. I don't know,
right?
Like I said, if there's any teeth to the rumors, but I think what we can pull away from it is, at the end of the day, was Lamont slighted in this situation? Did he catch the short end of the stick? Was there some lack of ethics in the way things were handled with him? I think there's an argument there to say that there is. We'll be excited to see what Lamont does. We'll see what he does, what he chooses to do. He has time to a certain degree, right? But I think he does want to get active and at least get one fight in for 2025. Right. So, we'll see what comes out. I'm expecting to hear something come out that side, and we'll see, what that puts him. Is he going to be at 130? Is he going to compete at 135? Is he going to compete at 140? Is he going to drop the WBA title 130? What's he going to do? Time is kind of on his side, but really not on his side, right? Because a lot of things are waiting on him.
Correct. That's the punishment of being a champion, Clay.
Yeah, man. So that being said, segueing into Shakur Stevenson, who's a legitimate option for Lamont Roach down the line 2026. We've been watching a somewhat public form of a negotiation, or I don't know how you want to call it, but between him and Teofimo Lopez on social media. Shakur's expressed interest in fighting Teofimo Lopez. At times, Teofimo Lopez does seem to have shown interest in fighting Shakur as well. But ultimately, as we've become used to with Teofimo Lopez, it's manifesting into nothing, right? Nothing is coming about on it. And I put out a little short the other day, and I questioned, I don't know if I put out the short or not.
You did.
I did, about Teofimo, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, feel free to answer the question and tap into the idea of, is Teofimo legitimately pricing himself out of the most formidable years of his career? Is he legitimately doing that, taking the stance that he's taken, especially on the back end of rumors that Turkey entertained again putting him in a fight with somebody on his roster, Shakur Stevenson in this case, and financing it. Teofimo seems to have wiggled his way out of it. Where are you on the Teofimo?
Wolf tickets, more wolf tickets, and a box office of wolf tickets. He is selling more wolf tickets than anybody I've ever seen. Every time there's a big matchup, he seems to be hesitant towards somebody he needs to fight. He sees the potential problems, I think, in fighters that are not his style. He avoids them, especially lengthy pause boxers. I think that Tio has been on record of fighting people that want to come forward and want to stand in front of him. I think his first mistake was getting exposed by Jermaine Ortiz. Second step was getting exposed by Sandor Martin, or maybe vice versa. With that being the case, the exposure that happened was him ended up questioning himself, especially coming off of one fight return from the loss and moving up in weight from Kambosos, who he never even thought to rematch. So when I was listening to, I forgot where I was listening, and I heard the Kambosos conversation, I'm like, well, I think it was Champ Side. Shout out to Champ Side. The Kambosos conversation, I literally said, if Tio was such a bad dude, he was really that guy, why didn't he rematch him? Why didn't he go back and get his title? It was offered to him. Why did he not even take this guy up when he moved to 140 for the opportunity? It seems that it's a ghost on his shoulder, or just a bad thing he's living with, and I think it's really mental with him. And I think he's only looking for the easy fights. He even looked terrible against a guy who was set up to be in front of him, and did a punching bag routine on his face, and Steve Claggett. So it shows that Teofimo, I mean, thank goodness he had this fight with Barbosa, who he figured out very well, and Barbosa played into his column of victory. But it looked like he was even hesitant in that fight. He didn't want to take that fight forever. And it took a lot of money to get that fight going. And finally, when it got going, he dominated. So is he that guy? Is he a guy that can get out there and fight with the best of the best that he's been in the ring and sparred with? Does he realize that he's not on the level of these guys, but he just, like I said, selling wolf tickets to put his name in there and get big fights with what notable nobodies or people that were former challengers, to say that he called out this guy or he wanted to fight this guy and this guy didn't want to fight, and he speaks on it. I don't know per se all the answers, but I just know it looks bad, to the point where even Punch Drunk is even questioning the homie. So, I mean, especially the antics is just out of control too. That's another thing. We could talk about that later, but just in general, he just looks like he just wants to do analyze and be that. What's the dude that was in WWF that used to wrestle that did all the talking? Jesse the Body Ventura. Looks like he want to be one of those dudes. Like he want to sit there and just talk crap on the sideline.
Or The Rock, right? Or The Rock. Like, I think in an ideal situation, that's who he'd be. Somebody, some controller, some showman type of person.
Yeah.
Look, man, Teofimo is, at one point in time, I believe, was one of the most talented fighters in the game. That's why I was at one more time. You know what I mean? A moment in time. But I felt like he completely lost his way in direction and lost an opportunity to build off that momentum. He took that loss against George Kambosos, and I agree with you 100%. An opportunity to come back and redeem that loss, to continue that campaign that he was going to be on. He didn't take it. He felt like the Lomachenko fight should have been enough. He accomplished something that nobody else could accomplish. He was a lineal champion and expected Top Rank to automatically invest into his brand and in him to be involved in the biggest fights, probably ideally pay-per-view fights and bigger paydays. Obviously, Top Rank felt like there was going to be some steps to this, right? And didn't necessarily believe that he was a draw enough to put him on pay-per-view, but wanted him to be active. He took indifference to it and faked out, or suggested retirement and said he was getting out of the sport just to make a return to 140, to make a return into boxing at 140. Put on, stopped a fighter, I think it was Campa, right? That he stopped.
Yeah, it was a stoppage. Yeah,
right. And then he went into a fight with Josh Taylor and looked amazing in that fight, right? Did he go into Sandor Martin or Josh Hill? I think
I think his first fight was Campa, then he fought Zepeda, Jose Zepeda.
Okay.
After Zepeda, he fought Josh Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
He fought Josh Taylor, and then he fought what's the name for the title? He defended the title against Sandor Martin, and then later Ortiz.
Right.
Right after.
So after the Josh Taylor fight, people thought he returned, right? Oh man, look at it. A motivated Teofimo returning to the space, and we thought he got his mind together and was ready to put in the work. He even made some statements as to saying that he's going to allow Top Rank to move with him and just be the fighter. And I was excited, right? He went into a fight with Jermaine Ortiz, got to headline his own fight in New York, and he looked regular, looked like he couldn't cut the ring off, looked unfocused. During that time period, I think we can acknowledge that he was dealing with some personal issues as far as divorce, issues in his home life and things of that nature. Maybe these things distracted him.
Let's not forget about the cheap shot too, man. Regardless of what you look at, his dad told him to do that with the headbutt or whatever. For
you're talking about Jermaine?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that he did that, right? I know that happened, but I don't know the reason.
I know he went in the corner on a break, and his dad said something in his ear, and next you know, he popped his head open.
I mean, hey, bro, you know
me.
I don't speculate that deep, especially when it comes to cheating or accusations or putting jackets on people.
Yeah, you ain't got to. I will. I own it.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, distracted. That's one thing I think describes Teofimo Lopez is distracted, is not focused, a lot on his plate, and hard for him to dial in. And at the end of that fight, he put the blame on Jermaine Ortiz, saying, this guy didn't want to fight me. Clearly, it's hard for me to make fights. And his fans supported him on that as well. But then he went into a Steve Claggett fight, looked pedestrian, got punched on a lot, trying to really bring excitement to the ring. And I think one thing that Teofimo's had to deal with at 140, that to me, looking from the outside looking in, I don't think that power is translated for him at 140. And I think he has an issue with that.
I don't think he ever had power.
Well, I think he had power that at 135 that he was confident in, that he was like, you know what, I can hurt people here. And I think that made a lot with his, I think there's an argument to say that made a lot to do with his confidence going into these fights. Even if he didn't ultimately end up in a stoppage, he knew that the power would get that respect. And I do believe at 140, that power just hasn't been there. Even with Josh Taylor, as good as he was looking, that power was looking all right. You know what I mean? Yeah. He wasn't going to stop Josh Taylor, you know what I mean? And he's finding that. He got in the ring with Steve Claggett. Steve Claggett was able to take everything he was trying to dish out, because he tried to stay in that mid-range, close-range space and operate with Steve Claggett there, and end up with a bunch of knots on his head, right? Then he goes into a little bit of a hiatus, and I think this is when we started seeing the real antics of Teofimo starting to surface. The racial energy, him calling out Terrence Crawford, him calling out Jaron, and it's just the weird stuff that people were just like, this isn't going to turn into anything. You're a current 140-pound champion right now. Why are you not pursuing unifications? Why not make the Devin Haney fight happen finally? Why not make all these fights that actually make sense now that Devin Haney was at that time a WBC champion who just came off of a spectacular performance against Regis Prograis? He was just never motivated, just couldn't quite get him over that bridge. And the antics got really cringe, confronted by Terrence Crawford on occasions, and just rubbing a lot of fans the wrong way. But it ultimately turned into an opportunity for him with Turki Al-Sheikh. He was able to make his way over to a Ring Magazine event. Turki said, hey, man, I want to do business with you. Gave him a supposed 3-fight deal. It was going to add up to millions and millions of dollars. We finally thought we saw Teofimo in a space to where he could let go of the antics and just dial in the boxing. But he seemed like he's addicted to that attention he gets from it. And ultimately ended up burning bridges with Turki Al-Sheikh, making fun of Turkey's religion and the country and things of that nature. And here we are right now, him once again burning a bridge with Turki again. And it seems like the options are becoming few to none. He's becoming a big disappointment. There's a part of his energy that kind of has a little bit of Adrian Broner seasoning sprinkled on it. Not necessarily on, the alcohol abuse or any of those things, but just the outside ring antics overwhelming and overshadowing his inside ring accomplishments. And it's just not enough inside ring things happening. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I agree 1,000%. And I don't know, and I hate to say it, I think it's been tough for him having to manage his father, even though his father was a manager outside the ring. We know his father had some issues with a lot of things personally. It's been exposed to the space of YouTube content creators. But I think that alone says a lot to a man of his age that has so much going on, where he probably has to get rid of, and I'm not making excuses for him, I'm just saying, he probably has to get rid of a lot of attention and a lot of things. Like you said, his thing going on with his wife and his kid situation, all these things happening. And now he's to the point where we even speculated that his dad was probably in the way of his marriage, right? we even speculated on that, and a lot of these things probably came to be truth of some sorts. But those things, it's hard for a person that's young 20s, mid 20s to deal with in a limelight when you're at the top of the world. And I think when things like that happen, it becomes very hard to maintain. I'm saying that everybody's strong or whatever, or not strong or is strong, but people have issues, and mental health is a real thing. And I think he's suffering from it, and I think he's refusing help. And I think because he's refusing help, a lot of the things he's doing is putting it out there in public situations. And I don't think he's ready for a lot of this. I think he said he did go for help once, right? But he didn't really he didn't like it or something. That's when he took that retirement. I think he said something that he had to deal with some mental health things. But there's a lot of things going on in this kid's head. And just to say that what we know is little to be known, but I think that he has to definitely start taking some ownership and some responsibility, because life is serious, man, and we don't want to see him. I mean, maybe he'll become an actor, Clay. He'll be a superstar actor or something, and that'll help him ride off into the sunset. But he's just always been a guy that's been chasing dreams, and it looks like every time he gets closer to those dreams, he has setbacks, and he doesn't overcome them well. And I think he starts putting on buffoonery activity to push himself forward and get himself through it. And those things hurt him. And I think his dad has been very patient, but also a problem, especially with the allegations of him being alcoholic or things like that and getting in the way as well. And it's sad. It's sad to say the least that, these things are triggered. Not to mention that whole racial thing that came about. People didn't, he wasn't acting like that until somebody called his dad a racist with the Keyshawn Davis situation. When they said that Keyshawn knocked him out or Coach K knocked him out in the gym, all of a sudden, he's like, oh, this is good media. Look at the attention I'm getting. And then he starts going on this rampage of racist conversation and knocks on certain words. Oh, I didn't say this. I said this. You know what I mean? And he knows what games and fine lines he's playing. He's being a habitual line stepper, and he knows it. And I think that it's a dangerous way of moving, and it's hurting him right now. And you can see it. Like, he has nobody. Bad.
Yeah, it does look bad from the outside looking in. We never know what's actually happening on the inside. Maybe he's worked, maybe something. I don't know. But from the outside looking in, if we had to assess it, it's hard to see something positive happening. Salute to Adult Choice in the building. Shoots salams at to the family. Walaikum salam back to you, family. Hope everything is good with you, man. Appreciate the color in the chat. Appreciate the support for the channel, man. It is once again a wasted talent. It just seems like it could be better than what it is with Teofimo. Shakur Stevenson seems to be heading into his chapter of everybody is interested in getting fights with him. He has an opportunity. He seems to be in a very good space. Turkey and him seem to be on the same page, coming off of one of his best performances, if not his best performance against William Zepeda. 2026 seems to be the year that everybody's anticipating his return. Turkey's on the same page, expecting him to return. He looks like he has plenty of options. Lamont Roach is on the table. Teofimo may be on the table. He also has other fights he can make at 140. He has fights he can unify in his division. So I'll be interested in seeing what Shakur is going to do. But right now, clearly resting up. Lamont Roach looking for a stay busy fight, and Teofimo looking for attention. Right. So it is what it is.
They're looking for stuff, right?
Yeah, man. It is what it is, man. So how'd you feel about the shout out to Talk of the Talk of SD in the building, highlighting the senior interview last night. I thought it was a great interview, man. I had a real good time doing that. We had a lot of support last night. I appreciate it. Over 100+ people inside the room. And a lot of people seem to enjoy the interview. Walk away with anything significant or special in that interview, because at the end of the day, Brian Norman and Devin Haney, this fight on November 22nd, without a doubt, the Normans are very confident on what they bring to the table.
I agree.
What did you think? What did you think about Brian Norman's perspective on this fight right here being one of the most even playing field fights that Devin Haney's been in a long time, as far as age, reach, size, all those different things in comparison to other fights he had? What did you think about his assessment of that?
I literally started naming down fighters. He was saying that He's fought nothing but guys over 30. I'm like, if you go down his resume, at the time he fought any of these fighters, only 8 of them were over 30. Ramirez being the last one. If you go into Devin's resume, as far as him being with guys the same size as him, you got Zero Adulev, which is the same size. Antonio Moran was the same size. You had Alfredo Santiago was taller. Linares was similar in size. Obviously, Ryan Garcia was slightly taller. So that myth went out the window. They're all similar in age as well. So it's
he fought Zoro Abdullayev?
Huh? Yeah.
Devin fought him?
Yeah, he knocked him out. That was his last stoppage.
Devin Haney?
His last stoppage was Zoro Abdullayev. That was for the interim.
I thought it was Antonio Moran that he knocked out. Wait, hold on.
No. Antonio Moran was for the WBC and WBA silver and diamond belts.
Okay. I must be thinking about another Abdullayev. Zoro Abdullayev.
No, the Abdullayev. Yeah, that was that. Remember that they always talked about that WBC tournament. That was part of that tournament. That was the last fight in that tournament. He beat Abdullayev for that belt to get the shot at homeboy Loma, and Loma dropped the belt and took the franchise belt.
Okay.
Got out the way.
Yeah.
Because he fought Luke Campbell for the WBC instead of Lau or whatever. And long story from there. You know, I think he took on another fight before Devin. But regardless, he did. He took on Pedraza for the unification instead of fighting Devin. But whatever the case may be, what's up, Coach? Whatever the case may be, man, it was great talks, great conversation last night, Clay, 100%. And I thought what Brian Norman touched base on was some good information, man. And I'm not there to knock him down on the stuff he thought and said. It's a lot of things that people have put out there. And he's doing his due diligence. You know what I mean? He's not perfect, and I don't expect him to be. He is human. But he's also a great coach and a great dad. And I told you 50-55. I put it in the chat last night. I said, I don't think I can't lean either way right now. If I want to lean towards experience, I can lean towards experience. I can lean towards power. Truly. And I just think that they need to fight the fights they need to fight. I think even Coach said it, or Brian Norman Sr. said it last night, right? You don't want these guys teaching Devin. He learns different things. It doesn't work out. Same thing goes for Brian Norman Jr. The workouts that he's doing is a lot of footwork, a lot of movement, a lot of slickness to his approach. He doesn't look like he's a slick guy. He looks like he's very stiff with certain things. But you know what? We see the same thing. So I'm saying on both sides of the street, man, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Clay, I think Ray got the two guys swapped. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
He might be talking about Zoro Abdullayev and Antonio Moran. But according to his box rec, Zoro Abdullayev was his last stoppage. I thought it was Antonio Moran as well.
No, that was his last knockout.
What, Antonio Moran?
Yeah, he beat Abdullayev to a pulp. Like he stopped. I think it was like 6th round, 4th round. He stopped him, and then the last guy, Alfredo Santiago, they were going to stop that fight in the 8th round. I think Devin had a knockdown in like the 6th, I think 5th round. It says 5th round. I'm actually looking at it right now, and it's crazy that I have a memory like that. And he knocked him down in the 5th round. They were going to stop that fight in the 8th round. They did, and they let it keep going.
Right. Salute, Coach Eddie. How you doing today?
What's going on? What's going on, brother? What's going on, Claymore the Chef? Ray the Damager. Y'all remember the J. Rue the Damager?
Then come pressure lock. Yes,
yes, yes, sir.
That's the hottest beat, bro.
Yeah,
as y'all know, man. What's the
heads up, cause we dropping some ish. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir, man. Shout out to J. Rue, man.
95,
sure,
93.
Yeah, man. There's so much to unpack, brother. Man, State boxing is in a weird space, but it's in a good space at the same time. Got a lot of good fights going on. At the same time, like I say, the Jake Paul and Tank Davis fight. It's like it's a weird conversation, man, because now it kind of is like they get back on the promotion company game banging. It's crazy, man. I'm like, bro, it's just a fight. Then they start comparing the fight. Well, it's gonna do better numbers than Terrence Crawford and Canelo, and it's a bigger fight. And nobody cares about Canelo and Terrence Crawford. Bro, what planet do y'all live on, man? I mean, it's gonna be viewed. Both fights are gonna be viewed. I mean, who cares which one is the biggest or who gets the most views? It's like a weird space where it's like a competition inside the competition, man. They talking about Jake Paul. Everybody knew that Jake Paul wasn't gonna fight AJ. Anybody with a half a brain. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that, but I'm gonna say I never felt like this was going to happen because simple fact that Turkey Al-Sheikh was facilitating. I looked at it as though a organized hit on Jake Paul to get him out of the game, because that was exactly what was going to happen. Jake Paul was not going to go anywhere near Anthony Joshua inside the boxing ring. It was going to be a demolition job, unless the kid is crazier than I think he is.
Eddie Hearn said it was about to happen. Eddie Hearn said that he pulled out the fight.
I mean, that could be right, but I just don't. I didn't see Jake Paul going, knowing. I don't think maybe he's delusional that he really thinks he can win that fight or something. He could be one of those guys like kind of like Jackass, those guys that used to take punishment just for clicks and views and would really risk their health, just to go viral, because that I didn't see any path to victory, in an AJ and Jake Paul fight. I just seen like somebody getting hospitalized and possibly, in a coma or something like that, or brain bleed or something like that. That's what I seen.
Now, I pull this up real quick, and I'm gonna pull it down when I'm done. I mean, just real quick here. What's up with this dude? This is what I'm talking about. And this is the energy that needs to be removed from the space, and it's okay for Tank to step away, in the capacity he wants to step away. Right? This guy TJ, my dream is to run a double team with you, GOAT.
Oh
right?
my God!
Now, obviously, what I mean. People just like
this. What's wrong with this fool, man?
What in the world? What in the world?
Hold on.
This is what I'm talking about, right? Like, this is what I'm talking about, man. Like, these people are obsessed in a very toxic way, bro. In a very toxic way. You know what I mean? This is in the recent posting you put up there. I mean, you can't make this up. You can't make this up.
That's the same guy that told him he loved him.
I don't know.
What was that? What was that?
That was on X right here. This was, I think, today, just recently. Let me see when it was. Yeah, 2 hours ago.
I couldn't blow it up, so I couldn't see what it was.
Yeah, they got a picture of Christine Milan in Paris, I guess in the movie. Javante puts out a little happy sign with his tongue hanging out, right? Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Loving what he's seeing. And this person right here answers right here, 10:53, about an hour and some change, goes, my dream is to run a double team with you, GOAT, right? The Queens of Boxing Talk put, I see why he hate y'all so damn much. Because what? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Shout out to Nick J and Boxiana.
That's wild.
Yeah. Nigga, what, bro? What? Is this Devin? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are just trying to figure out, like, weird ass generation. Yeah, bro.
What?
I told you last time I spoke, a lot of stuff today is like,
you?
Dude, it's like,
it's
insane.
It really is. It really is.
It really is.
That was weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's oh God, it is what it is, man. Like I said, man, shout out to Tank, man. I respect his choice, man. I respect him enough to stand on his business, man. And I think the space is the one that needs to adjust, not Tank. I think Tank has been being true to himself the whole time, and I think we need to start getting closer to the fact that we accept that Tank is working his way out of sport. He doesn't care for the sport right now. It could change later on, but we got to stop this.
Oh, Anton, before you go, salute to you, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Before you go, I'll tell you what, since you owe so many people push-ups, I'll take a 3-mile run or 40 sit-ups. Your choice.
No, I only got to do 300 push-ups.
You said there was 5 people on this panel.
Yeah, Shelton, all 5 didn't agree. Coach, you, Clay, and Shelton agreed.
HLD. Coach Eddie was here. You said all y'all. HLD was.
But yeah, y'all all gotta agree to the bet. Them guys wasn't willing to do push-ups. You, Shelton, and Clay agreed. I remember.
I thought Coach Eddie said, "Yeah, I'm with that too."
Coach Eddie on the panel now. Ask him.
Coach, was you part of that? Was you part of that wager?
Well, what was the bet? I don't think I was a part of it.
Okay, the
Okay.
bet was that
When I said if Tank didn't fight Roach, it was 100 push-ups.
And I think he
Oh
said
no, I didn't. I wasn't a part of that. I do remember you saying that though, but I didn't take
Yeah,
you up on the bet.
it was Clay, Ray, and Shellen Moore.
Okay.
If
Okay. Well,
HLB was
300.
here, we could
we're gonna call Anton Chisel Test.
what's his name
Listen.
him too.
Yeah.
Chisel Test
All
in
right.
the building.
All right. No worries, man. I was trying to sit up, do the sit ups.
We'll
It's
start
easy work.
working on your
I'm just being
push-ups
nice.
this weekend.
No doubt, man. So yeah, man, it is what it is. But how you doing, Anton? Long time no here on the show, man. How you feeling? Anton, you there?
He broke up. He was about to say something.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah, I hear you.
You got.
Yeah, I'm in a bad spot out here in Downingtown, PA. It's a lot of trees and all that out here. Can y'all hear me though?
Yeah, we hear you.
Clear.
Okay, yeah. No, man, I wanted to try to catch an interview last night. How did that go?
Nice.
Good, man. I think it was good. It was about damn near over 3 hours. And Brian Norman Sr., he's a great person to interview because he just always, he's so opinionated. And obviously we spoke on the Jaron Ennis situation. Well, he spoke on the Jaron Ennis situation. We talked about the Devin Haney fight. He made some good points. You give him an opportunity to go ahead and get his thoughts out and let him land his plane. I think he landed on some real perspective. One thing I pull from these situations is both these people have their truths. I believe Brian Norman Sr. has his truth, his perspective from where he's sitting, from what he's experiencing, and the way he sees it. I think he speaks honestly about that. I don't think there's any cap in his rap or any exaggeration. I think he's really just giving it to you the way he sees it. But I also, at the same time, feel like Ennis communicates as transparently as he can. And I think he keeps it 100 about how he feels about things. I think we don't acknowledge the people who aren't in the room enough. We don't acknowledge Eddie Hearns. We don't acknowledge Adrian Clarks. We don't acknowledge all the handlers that are involved in putting a lot of these things together. And we put a lot of weight on the back of the fighters. And when we don't see things we want to see, we assume the fighters are hands-on involved as to why they're not happening. You know what I mean?
Did you come out of the interview learning anything because I talked to Brian Norman Sr. on Saturday on Mill City. And I was asking him, what type of sparring partners was he bringing in for Devin Haney's style? I mean, of course, he wouldn't give me no names or nothing like that.
Right, yeah.
But he said he had a wide variety or a wide range of sparring partners for this coming fight.
Yeah. You know what I got from it, man? That Brian Norman a senior has a lot of faith in his son for good reason, as far as his son has earned his respect, has earned his father's respect. And when you see Junior, one thing, if you're going to judge, what they say, how does the old saying going out the Bible? I think you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, right?
Yeah.
However you look at Senior, the product being his son shows that his work speaks for itself when it comes to that. The product in the ring is a good product, but also outside the ring, I think Junior carries himself like a man's man. You know what I'm saying? He carries himself with some maturity, and he takes the sport very seriously, very dialed into the roots and the traditions of this sport as far as legacy and things like that are concerned. And I think that drives him to be the kind of fighter that fans can get behind, fans can support, and fans are probably looking forward to see him in the biggest fights that can be made.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I definitely pulled that away from you.
So what was your take on the stuff that happened over the weekend with Jaron and Canelo and Bud and what kind of crazy?
I mean, I think on face value, just seeing it was like, oh, come on, right? It was, come on, I don't like that, bro. Why are you getting involved in this? Why are you in the middle of this? Why now? Why couldn't you just say not right now? You got handle your business, man. I don't want to get involved in it. You just want to see the community show some unity sometimes. But at the same exact time, this is not a team sport like that. I'm always saying that this is a team sport, right? When I'm talking about the preparation for these fighters to get ready to get into these fights and what happens, it's a definite team sport. But at the end of the day, what loyalty does Boots owe Terrence Crawford? I think there's no argument there, little argument to be made that at the end of the day, he doesn't owe him much at all. And listen, if this is going to help elevate Jaron to the next level, he has a fight he's also getting ready for in October, and then a bigger fight in early 2026. He just entered a division where there's more punches in there, bigger guys, new adversities, new things to accomplish. He's going to pull out whatever he can in his bag of tricks to improve on the wrinkles of his game. And I think Canelo Alvarez checks the boxes if you're trying to do that. So, I think he's catching a bad jacket right now with this off code jacket they're putting on him. But I do understand where people come from as far as the outcry for unity in the community, that the community doesn't like to see stuff like this. Like, because when you look at the other communities, when you look at the Mexicans, the Filipinos, the Asians, the people from the UK, they tend to stay on their side of the conversation when it comes to these kind of fights, right? Like Australia is going to stay with Australians. The Mexicans are going to back Canelo no matter what, or they'll back Ryan Garcia no matter what. And it'd be nice to kind of see our community stand on that type of square from time to time. But the reality is that's not what the community does. It is what it is.
I looked at it a little different. I looked at it as like, I think it was kind of one. I think if Boots wasn't active, like if he didn't have a fight that was coming up, I think he probably would have thought longer about the sparring. Being though that he's in camp now, he probably looked at it as an opportunity to get some good work. And I also looked at it as his brother sparred Canelo back in the day, Ennis. So it's kind of like a, generational thing, like a kind of nostalgia thing. Like my brother sparred you back in the day. Now I'm the younger brother. I'm up and coming. They got pictures of him and they got pictures of Pooh from when they sparred. So, I mean, I didn't really take too much. Listen, I think Terrence, I think it's going to be a great fight. I think Terrence Crawford is going to win. And I just don't, when a man is on a mission, Bud got that look in his eyes, man. I don't think
That's what I agree with you
sparring.
on.
I don't think sparring David Goliath is going to stop what Terrence Crawford is going to do to Canelo.
Oh yeah,
next
listen,
month.
on the bigger picture of things,
I second that.
I'm very confident that this does not affect Terrence Crawford in any adverse way. I don't think he gives a damn. If anything, I'm gonna be real with you. Don't be shocked if it don't even really get him dialed in. You know what I'm saying?
Can I speak on this real quick? Can I speak on this part real quick?
Yes, sir.
Hey, real talk. This is a real fight. Canelo's coming to bring his best. Canelo's fighting the best switch hitter we ever seen in our generation, right? Stopping both sides and predominantly doing southpaw, right? And so Canelo's coming for this fight. He know Bud's not playing and he's not playing. He been able to ease up with these other fights at 168. But he know he's getting the best Bud, so why not go get Boots? And Boots want Bud too. So the enemy of your enemy is your friend in Art of War. It's like, hey, these guys want to beat each other. You feel me? And so I like Boots. I'm a Boots fan. This is boxing. This is they mix this culture up and all this other stuff and all that. No, this is boxing in the ring. This is international. This is real diversity right here. When it comes to cats really boxing, really building relationships, really fighting each other and being the greatest, right? So yeah, have Boots in the camp. You feel me? Get some switch hit and get some good work. And it's dope. What I like about it for Boots, because it ain't about just Canelo. Boots is moving up to 154. Everybody's crying that he's ducking. He ain't fighting no elite level. He gets some good sparring in, and he gonna dismantle what he needs to dismantle to look how he feels at 154. And then he's coming for them belts at 154. That's what it looks like to me when I'm looking at inside the ring and not these annex and these opinions and all of that. Because I'll tell you one thing with Bernie went on a long rant, but Bernie's funny as hell. But what you can't mistake what Bernie said is Bernie said a whole bunch of things he said Bud doesn't give a fuck. Why? Because Bud's in the gym. Bud's trying to stop him. Bud's trying to be legendary. Bud's trying to be 3-time undisputed, undefeated. You feel me? Going against him when he beats this one, if he beats Canelo, one of the greatest 168 pounds in history. You feel me? One of the greatest Mexican boxers in history. Like, this is real. They're filming everything. This is a movie, a documentary. This is big production. Expect the rematch. You feel me? Expect the rematch. Real talk. Like, dude, we're talking about possibly getting a real trilogy against two all-time greats. So it's like, we get caught up watching all this other stuff, and I don't like. That's why I want to say, and then I want to end like this. I don't let my plan like this with Tank versus Jake Paul. I'm not knocking the brother for getting his money, bro. I'm from the gutter, bro. And he came up. He became a crossfighter early. Floyd got him to the bag, and now he's doing an exhibition fight. But It's minstrel, bro. You see the video that Jake Paul put out for the promo of him in
Mm-hmm.
a lineup looking like a midget with all them black folks, hella stereotypical. This is
Yep.
some fucking Birth of a Nation type shit
I
if you
seen
ain't
it.
woke. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you don't get a pass for that. I'm gonna critique that. I'm gonna say this is not a real fight. I'm gonna say this is Hollywood. You fighting a white boy from Disney. You feel me? And is a YouTube sensation before that. But remember, he's Disney, big corporation. Stop playing with me. I know what I'm looking at because I know my history. And when we talking about, and the thing is with people who ain't foundational Black American ain't gonna care. And I respect that. So you're gonna have multiple opinions on that. But I'm gonna say that critique, and then I want to interested to see, okay, you had this big fight, Jake. We got this big bag. Are you gonna still compete? Or are you gonna retire? If not, then he's nobody gonna be talking about in his boxing space. You
Wow.
feel me? Because at the end of the day, it's like, hey, he drew with Lamont. There ain't no way a real boxer, real man, what we consider like this masculine sport that we gravitate to. You feel me? In this culture and society that we in right now, and why we watch this shit, and why we might train, and why we might fight. You feel me? We don't respect turning down that fade when he drew with you when you were undefeated, and we thought you was the best thing since sliced bread. So if you don't expect this, you don't want this critique for some men, or I ain't knocking the woman, but I'm talking about from fighters. Let's just say fighters, excuse me, because there's men and women fighters. But from fight culture, you feel me? To critique this move that you making, you got another thing mistaken. And I get why it happened. He thought he was gonna win, it
Right.
ended up being a draw. And I'm
Right.
gonna land my plane right here.
I want to touch base on what you just said. I actually agree with you and
Hold it down for me, man. I'll be
and
right back.
Clay. Yeah. That whole Canelo Boots thing, I think it does not mean anything. And I think people are looking to it the wrong way. We have a lot of things that we missed on the behalf of Jaron Ennis. What did Jaron Ennis say? He may end his career at 168, right? That was a key thing. He also said that he'll be fighting at 154 and 160. He can see himself making those weights easy and competing at those divisions to be champion. So what better way to get somebody that's been in the game for over 20 years and has fought in four divisions, two of them currently that he's in, and two of them which he's talking about he may enter. Would
And
also
he's training to get somebody that's going into one of the
that's
hardest fights of their life. I know
listen,
I'm just
listen.
adding with you,
And
right?
he's
I'm
Got
with
you.
you, right? With you.
and
Right.
he's seeking the
Well,
knowledge.
let
Come
me,
on.
let me right. Let me tell you. So now he's thinking, what? I got to fight somebody that's similar to Virgil Ortiz. Who better yet is going to punch you on you like Virgil Ortiz does than Canelo Alvarez, who's going to throw on your arms, hit you in the forearms, hit you in the shoulders, just attack you on the inside than Canelo, right? So are they doing
Yeah.
each other a favor? Are they giving each other looks? Like we
That's
have
the
to
iron
look at
sharpen iron.
right, exactly. We have to look at these things in a whole perspective of not just looking at it as, oh, he's going out there to help him get ready for Bud. He may be, but it's also vice versa
He's
to
gonna
that.
work for himself. He want to be
Right.
great
So
himself.
it
That's what's so dope about
exactly
it.
what it
He's
is.
not his water boy.
Right.
There might be speculation that he got the best of Canelo and some of that with that length and that speed. So
Right.
it's like, let's not them guys is really the guys and they really smart. There ain't gonna be no video they don't need to be. But if they push themselves up in there, I bet you Boots. He look, I don't know, I ain't gotta wait, but we see that he looked like he's more than 168. Or at
Oh
least
yeah.
168 in there with Canelo. Like he got that weight on when he decided to go rounds with Canelo. So not only he preparing for this fight in October, that motherfucker bulked up to spar Canelo. Cats don't see what they want to see because they
Right.
focus too much outside the ring and not
Right.
what you see in the ring, the visuals, the what you actually see them do inside the ring. That's why it'd be corny when we be talking like, I just want to talk inside the ring shit. I don't care about
Right.
no contract
Right.
speculation, no what, whose color trunks is whatever, who they feel, black and brown solidarity, whatever.
Look.
No, we can have that
Funny.
shit in a separate discussion. When we talk about the best, these guys are on trajectory. Bully's all-time great. Canelo's
Right.
all-time great. Boots is
And
setting himself up in position to be all-time great, undefeated,
exactly.
and
And
looking
that's
clean while you do it. So come on, man, y'all
and,
ain't paying attention to
and
greatness.
everything that you took everything that I was going to say and put it in a whole 3D box. So you just gave a better explanation than what I would have. But I'm glad you said it because that's what I believe Boots is chasing. Boots is chasing legendary status. He's chasing that greatness that everybody wants in boxing. He said it himself. He wants to be a champion. He wants to be multi-division champion. He wants to be unified champion. He wants to be undisputed champion. By him to do so is by going to the guy who's recently done it, that's still currently boxing, and to get the experience, pick his brain, and deal with him. He knows he's probably not going to end up fighting Canelo because Canelo will probably be retired by the time Boots gets to 168 or even in or around that division. We all can see Boots fighting that light heavyweight. We all can see that. Boots is about 5'10", 5'11", and he's damn near 175 pounds easy, so he'll definitely make the division. It's just a matter of punch resistant and getting to that point. So this is no knock on anybody else in the other divisions. This is just the fact, like you just said, and when I was saying, let's not look at it as him just helping Bud. He might have been preparing himself for the future fight with Virgil based on styles. Iron sharpens iron. You touched on it best. Those are the best thing to say. So now we have to look at it and get past everything that is currently happening, because we're bringing it up because it's current over the weekend or whatever knowledge. But and great question too, Anton. But us getting past it, ultimately to move on to this week's and next week's approach is we're glad that it's happened, and it shows that not only that we can get along in the space of Latino and black boxers or slick and flat-footed boxers, however you want to say it, but we can help each other out when least expect it. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah. I agree. I think, I don't dismiss people's outcry. I really don't. There's an outpour and there's an outcry, especially, there's obviously a group of people in this boxing space who are very pro-black, right? And I would say if you were in that position in this boxing space, you're going to be triggered a lot.
But look, I want to say too, though, no, I am pro-black. I'm pro-chattel slavery revolt black. You feel me? And what I'm saying is this soft shit don't move me. That's what I see in Bud, like being from Omaha, Nebraska, whatever hood he's from. You feel me? Look, just straight, just iron, bro. Like this emotion shit ain't going on inside this ring, bro.
Well,
Like this is straight martial arts boxing. Like I know, I get it. And so the politics is all that. What I'm talking about, he dealt with racism too. He dealt with everything we dealt with too. We deal with that shit. We ain't whining about that shit. We gonna let our hands go. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, and I take that mentality out to people who got views who just comment, because it's like, hey, I share these views, but I'm not going to be crying in the chat about it when we talking about boxing, two legendary greats. That's not the issue right now. We can have a whole separate debate, a whole panel for that, and we can talk about social, economic, and political issues and racial disparities, and I can give you all of that because I'm educated. I can tell you how, I can tell you stolen legacy and destruction of a black civilization and all types of shit. You feel me? I can take you all the way back to, you feel me, all black Egypt days. You dig what I'm saying? But we talking about boxing.
Right. So that's what I was segueing into, to say that I understand that there's a group of people in this space who are dialed into the legacy of black culture in boxing and how it's been exploited in different ways, and they want to see, and they're triggered. They want to see a certain amount of unity in the space that, I don't believe this space, there's no real room for it like that, right? Like in general, just because of the competitive nature of the space. It's a team sport on a minimal level, on a big level as far as preparing these fighters, but everybody for themselves, you know what I'm saying? Every man for themselves. And Jaron Boots Ennis, in the position that he's in, shouldn't be forced to or wait out entertaining opportunities that are going to better him off the strength of how it's going to affect a fighter who has absolutely nothing to do with his legacy.
So let me give you an example that'll help him, right? That complains about this. What about the black and brown solidarity on the other side with Boots, having a relationship with Canelo and his brother having a relationship with Canelo, and helping them not only with the boxing part but the business side too, and being wise. Like what happens to that part? You feel me?
Well,
because his brother, they've been having a relationship. They've been having a relationship together.
Right.
This ain't nothing new.
Right. That's the these are the outside, variables that people are not aware of or even taking into consideration, because these people are triggered off the idea of, and like I said, I think Boots catches a stray bullet on this one. I think he catches a jacket that he doesn't deserve to get, but I think it's on the back. It's on the back end of, this is kind of like the hair that's breaking the camel's back, right? It's on the back end of Terrence Crawford being accused of performance enhancement drugs and having that jacket, being in the ring with the Canelo Alvarez, who's actually been caught cheating. This is on the back end of his community, Terrence Crawford's community, being the leader of the witch hunt, you know what I'm saying, on him and wanting to tear him down, and the resistance that Terrence Crawford's had throughout his whole entire career in this community when it comes to conversations of Errol Spence and things of that nature, and people not ever wanting to celebrate any of his accomplishments, always wanted to downsize and dismiss what he's accomplished. And I think these group of people see this, right? They see how Ryan Garcia is celebrated and put on a pedestal no matter what he did against a black fighter in Devin Haney. And it comes to a point to where the outcry becomes deafening to a lot of people's ears. And I think Jaron Ennis, wrong place, wrong time. You know what I'm saying? But he doesn't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? Is what at the end of the day, he's doing what he has to do. But I think it speaks to an issue in the black boxing space that is, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, different from a lot of other spaces. You do see the camaraderie and the unity in the Mexican boxing fan space. You see it in the Asian space. You see it in the UK space. The nationalism in the Eastern European space. You see that. And, African American boxers have a rich history in American boxing, and an argument to be said that they've held American boxing on their back all the way up until this point. But the community has been so fragmented in such a crab in a barrel mentality a lot of the times when you listen to these channels, where when they see something like that, their instinct is to be like, it's to group Jaron Ennis's moves that are benefiting his own career into what people will call coonery or crab in a barrel energy that we see in a lot of other spaces. I think it's an unfortunate thing, but I think we're dealing with people who have tough skin. I think Jaron Boots Ennis has tough skin. I think he's dialed into what he needs to get done. The people that support him are going to support him. Obviously, we know that Terrence Crawford is tough skinned, not worried about that. And like I said earlier, probably motivating him. He's probably laughing his ass off like, word? A2 Jaron? Okay, we're going to put both of y'all on the chopping block. When I bust his ass, it's going to be me busting your ass too. I love it. The same way that Terrence used Jermell Charlo as motivation to get at Errol, right? Like, not only was he fighting Errol, but he wasted no time to run to the side of the ring and find Jermell and be like, Negro, use a bitch ass Negro, bro. And that was your ass getting whooped. If you even think about signing the contract, go ahead and bring your ass in her. You know what I'm saying? Because I done busted your boy's ass and I'm going to bust your ass. He's dialed in that way. He's learned to use the adversity as fuel. We're talking about somebody whose mama was handing out $5, $2 for people to come whoop her son's ass. This man,
his mama wasn't hugging him, bro.
Yeah.
Listen, man, scientifically, he's cold-blooded, bro. They did scientific studies, bro. You need a certain amount of hugs as a child, bro. His mom wouldn't tell him he loved him. That's why he been violently beating everybody up.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's his origin story. They don't put it in the movie. You see, they filming everything. They filming fucking everything for this fight. And that's what's so big about this shit is
Shiloh DeBuff, I think is his name, an actor, young actor, right?
Yeah,
he did an interview. He did a very interesting interview like 4 years ago, and he was talking about, he had some mental health issues and he had to go get some therapy outside of the acting screen. He was a very tribulated person, you know what I'm saying, dealing with energy. But he talked about how tough he grew up. His father was a rough disciplinarian, and his mom was somebody who wasn't paying attention to him like that. And he said something very significant in the interview. He said, I did not grow up being celebrated, right? He said, I just wasn't celebrated. So what it made him was cold, like you said. So the problem he was having a hard time being sensitive to the people around him who he loved, his woman, you know what I mean? They'd accuse him of just being cold, and it bled into his relationships, which became a little toxic. But ultimately, the big thing I'm dialing in on is that somebody like Terrence Crawford isn't, if it wasn't for his children, that's probably what saved him and made him have a place to not be cold in, a place where he can be, warm in. But being raised that way by your mother, facing the adversity you're facing in this boxing space, Terrence Crawford is not worried at all at what Jaron Boots Ennis is doing with Kenneth. Anything, he's the type of person who makes the story up in his mind. He looks at it like, oh, they scared. Look what they doing. Oh, look at the extent they're going through to get ready for little old me. Oh, they really already, he's thinking of it in a whole different way. But once again, like I said, dialing into empathizing with the outcry. I know where it's coming from. I'm not blind to it, right? Like, I understand where it's coming from, this code that everybody's talking about. I understand the roots of this energy that's coming out, seeing Jaron Ennis over there with Canelo. I understand the foundation, where it's coming from. I'm not beyond understanding or seeing the writing on the wall. Like, I get it, but I also got to be honest and say that ain't got nothing to do with Jaron and what he's doing in his career. And in reality, this sport, the way this sport is, it's a cold sport. I don't know how much room there is in this sport for that mentality. You're going to be triggered constantly in this sport because fighters go through large extents to get into the head of other fighters. They tap into all kinds of conversation. I was talking to my guy yesterday who's talking about Lamont Roach, and I'll let my plan here and say that people are upset with Lamont. He was upset with Lamont. This is my guy, right? He has, this is my guy was upset with Lamont. He says, man, Lamont's cool. That's my guy, but he didn't appreciate when Tank went through his charges. Lamont said, oh, man, this dude beating on his wife to get out of fight with me. He felt like that was kind of like a no man's land. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, that's disrespectful.
It is, but it's just
really
to show you when it comes to two fighters trying to motivate each other to fight, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to Lamont trying to get to his end goal and his accomplishment, there's not too much that's off the table. So if these things trigger you and make you be like, oh, hell no, nah. Bro, this sport's going to be a hard place for you to exist in because these fighters go there when it's time to make a fight and get in your head. These fighters go there. I watched Bill Haney cuss out Brian Norman and talk about his dying mother. You know what I'm saying? With no remorse. Called her a whole, dropped a B-bomb on her and everything. And Brian had to be like, oh, I'm going to see you. I mean, later on, Bill came back and built with him and apologized. And they met as men, they understood that they went too far. But it's just to show you in the heat of battle, bro.
That's what I believe. Listen, what I believe Ryan got in Bill and Devin's head. And them goofy ass rushed right into the left hook in the first round instead of boxing them. So I know with the mental warfare, we done seen it happen right before our eyes. And so like
Ryan went crazy with the mental warfare.
He went crazy. He played crazy UFOs, put the foil on his head and some motion.
The New York State Athletic Commission was this close to
you remember he was in undisclosed location with nobody around him talking about they took his devices? Like remember we was on like, is this really happening? He pulled on up.
He tapped into a very dark place in order to affect Devin Haney in some adverse way to walk him into things. The space is diabolical when it wants to be. And I don't know if in a space like this, we can don't be too far, pro-black, support these black fighters, whatever have you, but your skin better be a little thick because you might see somebody like Jaron Ennis who doesn't subscribe to any of that, who's not listening to you guys on social media, who's not letting your voices influence his moves, and you're looking at somebody who's legitimately moving off the strength of this makes sense for my career. I'm going this way. And you guys want him to compromise that with, hold on, how's everybody going to look at me? Hold on, am I on code? Hold on. He's not thinking, he don't got time to be thinking about all that, bro. He got a real career legacy he's driven. He wants to be, like you said, Blaze, legacy, unified, champion, unified, undisputed, put my name in the history books as one of the best to ever do it. That involves so many moving parts. He don't got time to think about you guys.
He's
making sure that he holds his black fist in the air as he moves through this crazy world called boxing.
He's locked in, Clay. This is like, look, he's 38, right? Or 37, about to be 38. How old is he? 38? Is he really 38 or 37? Bud. Bud's
like, I think he'll be 38 when he gets in the ring. I think he'll be 38. Let me check out
think about this. He's going into the ring and at 38, and if he handles his business, which he most realistically could, he's apex in his career at the age of 38, and it's going to get bigger after this. He catapults his name and status, you feel me, in current pop culture. You see what I'm saying? But he's still going legacy because you see, he got a shirt to say 4 times undisputed. I'm trying to figure out where the 4 times gonna come from. I think if he wins, though, this is what I think, though. Listen to me.
Goes back to 154?
I'm doing it imagining. No, I think he goes to 160 and get a strap and become 6th division undefeated champion.
No, he'll be 38 years old 2 weeks after this fight. He'll be 37 going into the ring with
so just think about what I just said, though. And then he go let him fight Laura, who they said arguably beat Canelo.
Laura's old though, man. Laura's like 43 years old.
But that's the bag. That's the tune-up fight going down to fight Boots or whoever else is after that. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, get a title. Just like he went to 54, it's like a tune-up coming up to Canelo. He went and got a title from Madrimov, an unknown. Now, he only had 11 fights or 10 fights before that, but let's not forget he had over 300 amateur fights. Casuals don't grade amateur fights. I do, because you see what Loma and them Eastern Europeans do, and they catapult fast fight high-level competition coming out of their amateur career. So, and they be Olympic type medalists. So I don't want to hear nobody denigrate that, because them guys come with smoke in their hands when they come into the pro league. That's why they move so high. That's why they get titles in under 15 to 20 fights generally. But off topic, back, he went and got that belt at 154, trying to fill out the weight because he was wanting the Canelo before Badgermall, but he was trapped over there in between 147 and 154 because he was getting pump fake with the rematch with Spence, and they had him held in the claws. So once they let him out the claws, he had very little time to move up to 154, but he went to 154, got a belt, and then he's been a whole year sitting with all that weight on him. I don't know what he's doing in this camp, but what he showed me, if I'm just looking at the sequential order of how he showed his weight, he showed his weight way earlier at like 180 than 188, right? So what I believe is, I really believe he's in camp holding 180, going back to 168. I believe if he really wants to fight, because they say he's too small, I believe he's stepping on the scale between 167, bro, 166 and a half, and 168, bro, and he's rehydrating the 180.
Yeah,
because this is it. And he needs that power, and he's putting it on. And they're gonna blame it on snack. I'm getting my snack shirt too. I might get some supplements.
I think I might get. I think I'm gonna get the snack shirt too, man. Shout out to Snack.
Everything. And I'm gonna wear it to the fight, because I'm talking about snack aside, nutrition, conditioning, just discipline. And I'm gonna just land my plane right there. Already right. I believe he's gonna come in between 168, 66 and a half, and 168. And he's gonna rehydrate to over 180, and he's gonna put it on the line.
Yeah, I think this fight right here, it's going to be a highly contested fight. I wish it was a 15 rounder, to be honest, man, because it had that type of feel to it.
So backfield.
15 round fight, because you got two guys. Let me tell you something. You think that little red-headed Mexican finna lay down? You got another thing coming, man.
No, he's not.
It's finna be a fight, brother. It's going to be a fight, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he slimmed down. He's trying to rewind the clock and get the post Mayweather with the footwork.
Is there not enough eyes being put on the fact that, like I said earlier in my little soliloquy when I started the show, I said a year and a half to 2 years ago, when this fight Terrence Crawford was bringing it up and showing his interest in it, and Canelo Alvarez was saying this fight meant nothing to him, that this would be easy, light work for him, fighting somebody. If you remember Canelo Alvarez being on the Breakfast Club saying, this is nothing for me, bringing him up from 147 to 154 to me, this is easy. This does nothing for me. I'm just going to run through him. Well, how serious is Canelo Alvarez all of a sudden taking this fight to go through the extent he's going to? When you see him bringing the Jaron Boots Ennis, does this back up the argument that Canelo Alvarez has acknowledged the real threat and the real value of Terrence Crawford in this fight?
Yes, he ain't bringing Boots for nobody else.
I think Canelo is going to try to bury Crawford. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's the intent. He wants to knock him smooth out, man, because both guys got a lot of things to prove. People are saying that Canelo's old, he's washed up. And Bud, a lot of people questioning his resume, so he has something to prove. If Bud doesn't win this fight, hypothetically, will he be looked at as though he failed? Because his legacy is already, and the haters, the detractors are gonna be like, well, you stepped up, finally you fought a guy that that you wasn't a favorite in, and you got cooked. Kind of like when Andrade stepped up and fought David Benavidez, which that's not a fair measuring stick, because David Benavidez cooks everybody. So just because you got beat by him doesn't make you a bad fighter. But they basically threw his whole career in the trash can because of one loss to David Benavidez. So this is a must win. I think it's a must win for both guys. This is a must. This is a game 7 for both guys.
Buddy gets respect like Canelo got his respect when he lost to Bivol. He'll get his respect. You know what I'm saying? But Canelo got respect. I actually became a bigger fan of Canelo doing that, because Bivol was way bigger than him and way faster than him and outboxed him. But Canelo pushed forward all 12 rounds. You feel me? You can't take nothing away from his performance in that loss. He just was outclassed. You know what I'm saying? At a higher weight division. And that's why they're weight divisions for a reason. And that's why I know I'm the underdog going for Bud, because I'm a Canelo fan too. If Bud gets caught like anybody else get caught, he'll get dropped like everybody else got dropped.
100%. Do you think that do you guys believe that that now you see pundits in the space, you know what I mean, who, you know, didn't speak up before, but all of a sudden it's split. Like, this fight is, even in Vegas, the odds aren't bad, right? Like, people understand this is a fight that's why I said it's going to be an era defining fight. And I don't mean the era that we're leaving. I mean the era that we're going into. I think depending on the success of this fight and how competitive this fight is, we'll see a lot more fights like this being ushered into the space where fighters are challenging themselves and making it more regular.
It takes the work. See, Bud's changing the odds with the work that he's showing. We wasn't sure if he was going to be smaller, and he's taller and was bigger than Canelo. He had to put on platform shoes. You feel me? Then we're seeing his training. Then we're seeing his physique. Like, they didn't think he was 147 going up to 168. They was like, remember, he was scrawny. We got tape of him looking scrawny, knocking cats out. You feel me? So Bud changed the odds with how he's showing up. He's showing up already when they shake hands, looking bigger than Canelo, and then he's showing up chopped right now.
And he's somebody to take seriously. He's kind of like, I ain't had no daddy in my life, but I know there's fathers out there who have the credibility of, if they say they're gonna whoop your ass when they get home from work, you get nervous and more nervous and more nervous as that clock gets closer to his ass walking through that front door. Because, you know, ain't one thing about for sure is he stand on business, and he gonna be right on what he told you is about to happen to your ass when he gets to that door. And I think Terrence Crawford kind of operating under that same energy of the strength of, he's so, you know, it's hard to deny an undefeated 4-weight class champion, 2-weight class undisputed champion who says, I'm coming to stomp a mud hole in this man's ass. In the back of your mind, even if you are doubting him, you have to ask yourself, what is that going to look like if he does it? Because he's done it every time he's had to come to the ring. He's not a play around guy. He's not the type of guy that you just sit there and write off as, he's just talking. Really, what in the world has Terrence Crawford ever shown you to make you believe that he's just talking?
Bud ain't never went for it. Bud ain't never went for it. He has no split decisions on his record. Even with the Madrimal fight, right? I compare the Madrimal fight now to when he fought Sean Porter, in a sense of, he was coasting in Sean Porter's fight. He was just control, because he has mental control when he's inside of the ring. And when they told him, "Mud, I'm down," and he said, remember, he had just it wasn't even like a super expression on his face. He was like, "What, I'm down." You feel me? And then he had the discipline to just crank it up a little bit. So when he fought with Madrimov, he didn't know who he was fighting, and then Madrimov came out and started fighting like he never fought on tape before. He wasn't doing none of that switch right hand, none of that other shit. He came doing some a whole upper body moving slips and slides and all this other shit. And he looked at that shit for a few rounds and took his time, and then he outboxed him at the end, and then he pressed him in the 12th round. This is a very controlled and disciplined fighter. He don't care about the KO more so than technically outmaneuvering you inside of that ring. You see what I'm saying? He technically outmaneuvers his opponents. It's not no swinging for the fences. It wasn't nothing random. You feel me? And he takes punches to give punches to stay in range to catch you. You see what I'm saying? And so it'd be crazy. It's like, which way? I'm gonna end right here. I'm gonna give it to you.
That could be the undoing of him in this fight, though. That could be the undoing of him.
I'm gonna tell you. You're right, OG. I'm gonna tell you why. Because if he catches one clean like Canelo like that, he can go down. So yes, that's the danger. That's the clear and present danger. That's what makes this fight very, very, competitive. But what I'm saying is this, though, is that he punches too. You feel me? And he makes people misses and counters too, right? Like, it's technical. And so that's the thing that we all know is boxing is like, I know as well, I'm a Canelo fan. All them other cats we got before him, Mungia, Berlanga, Charlo, Plant, all of them got caught and got dropped. They talk about, he didn't stop him. He dropped him. You feel me? And dropping Bud, and Bud being tough and going 12, he wins the fight. You see what I'm saying? And that can happen in this fight. I'm not taking that. So he has to take that into consideration going up to 168, knowing that Canelo has that punching power. So I do expect him to fight in southpaw and be fighting off the back foot and keeping his distance and trying to figure things out and being very defensively sound and not putting a lot of risk in the earlier rounds, anticipating he can tire him out in the mid rounds. He gotta box him. There ain't no slugfest involved, period, dealing with this. But we know Bud can do it. That's the whole point. It's like, I'm not asking for Bud. We're watching Bud. We're not expecting Bud to not do what he do in the ring outside of being more defensively responsible.
Right. My take on it is, to me, it's going to be a hard fight to really predict. I can see going both ways. I could definitely see Bud being tailor-made for Canelo, and the point that Canelo's always had this fantasy, and he put it out there that this is his rematch with Floyd Mayweather. I mean, this is his Mayweather fight that he wanted that rematch. So he has some type of things he's working on. He's taking it very seriously. He's approaching it very differently than he did any other fight. Whereas Bud is like, look, man, I'm chasing greatness. I have a lot to live for. You know what I mean? This guy's got more miles on his tires than I do, though he's younger. I have something
But
more.
no, he don't. He got way more fights. Yeah. Well, you talking
Yeah,
about Canelo got way more fights, right?
yeah,
My
that's
bad,
what
my
I said.
bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So Bud's like sitting there like, yo, listen, this is my opportunity. You know what I mean? And like you said, the 4-time undisputed, right? Or 4-time unified. Let's use that word. That sounds a lot better than
Yeah.
undisputed. 4-time
Yeah.
unified champion. Like I could see him going that route, and he's looking to set greatness. Um, I think the sell of the fight it does itself. Bud has a huge following, but not as big as a lot of fighters that people would like to think that he doesn't have a huge following, but he really does. Even in the critic section, where Canelo has a huge following altogether due to demographic and being that his own country follows him, and that's no matter where they are. So the fight itself is going to be amazing. Who takes it? It's up for grabs. I think Canelo has a opportunity to just punch out and beat and be a stronger fighter than Bud. But I think Bud has the elusiveness and the thought process to keep thinking while he's fighting to adjust. And I think this is going to set up for a great fight, and it's going to put different situations out there to make people really respect this fight at the end of the day, no matter who wins or loss. I could see it going to a draw just to the fact that they want to see it happen again. But you know what I mean? Who knows? We're only speculating on certain things. We do know some things that are there to be true, and some things we can be very speculative of. So, with all that being said, I mean, hey man, I can't wait. I'm just gonna leave it there. I can't wait.
I wanna segue out of this real quick because I'm about to close it up real quick. I got stuff to do. This whole entire Jermell Charlo calling out Errol Spence situation. What do you guys think about that?
I'm all.
Yeah, me and Ray already built on this, but Coach Eddie and Blaze, I mean, any opinion at all on this? Like, are you taking it seriously? Is this realistic? Is this adding up into anything that's going to build up into a fight, or are we just being gaslighted again by this whole entire Jermell Charlo Errol Spence conversation, just in general, being that they've been out of the ring since Showtime went in a separate direction from the PBC?
I'll go first real quick. And my thing is, it makes sense for both of them in camp if they're talking about just making some money, and mutual beneficial for they both are rusty, so they both got to come back. Now I don't know the dynamics of their relationship because they had a deep relationship because they was in camp, and then the Derrick James fallout. So when you see the what Charlo Jamero's on, I don't know if it's business and it's they got a relationship in the background, or if they don't got a relationship no more, and he's pressing it, and he maybe know his guy to press his buttons, and it's not necessarily an amicable thing, but this would be in their best interest to fight each other. You feel me? Because they both, they both coming back. They both been on long layoffs, right? They both trying to see what they got, and they both trying to get paid because they done got paid more money than they ever got paid before. So a Charlo Spence fight sells. Their names sell. We got enough respect for them fighters that we gonna show up and watch that fight. You feel me? And then if they train and all of that, let's see if one of them or maybe both of them are still got their heart in them and still want to continue to fight at a high level and fight for other titles. So I think and then it's like if they're friends, it's like, hey, they breaking all the bread down together with each other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a big bag relative to anybody else they fight. You think if you go 154 and you match them up with anybody else, you feel me? As far as them being rusty, you feel me, and them having an opponent, who makes a bigger bag?
Are you buying into it though? Are you expecting something to happen? To happen on the back end of this? Like, does this add up into anything for you? Or I mean,
Because it takes two sides. And what I would just tell you is this: I think Charlo wants it because he's the one that's putting the shit out there. You feel me? Spence don't talk much. You feel me? And like I said, I think Charlo wants it. You feel me? But the thing is, we don't know what Spence wants because unfortunately, Spence has been hurt, broken, and inactive since Bud massacred him. You feel me? Let's not forget that wasn't just any just loss for Spence. You feel me? So I don't know what he wants. I don't know if he wants he say he's Mr. No tune-up. So technically people will call that a tune-up if he fight Charlo, but I don't even think he want Charlo right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Who is one of the all-time greats at 154, who was undisputed, who did lose to Tony Harrison and avenge that loss, who ruled Castillo. Was it Castillo? And then, am I saying Castano? And then he came back and, decisively won. Like, he been tough at 154. You feel me? Charlo ain't just anybody for Spence to just be getting back in the ring with. You feel me? But my question is, Charlo been off with that Canelo money, and then he be having out the ring issues. I don't know what type of conditioning and shaping he is if he's that dog right now.
Right.
So, that's my opinion on it. I would like for it to happen, but I ain't tripping. I don't care if it happens one way or another.
How you feel, Coach? Coach, you there?
Hold on, my bad. Yeah, I'm not gonna say I like the fight, but Errol's been out for a long time, man. I think if they do the fight, I think they're gonna do it once. I think both of those guys don't seem like they want to jump into that 154-pound division because it's too many guys you can call out. Why call out, your brother? Unless Al Heyman, this might have Al Heyman written all over it. Big fight in-house, both you guys in your mid-30s, y'all can make a decent payday, and then stay away from the young guys. That could be a possibility. Maybe they talked about it, like you said. I think earlier they may have had a conversation with each other. Be like, hey man, what you want to do? You want to make some bread? Go in there, just try not to kill each other, to make it look halfway decent. And and it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It could be like a glorified sparring session. But they already fought each other a lot in the gym, so they're very familiar with each other. They've been in, had some tough rounds, so it's one of those things, man. Like, if the money's right, man, I don't mind the fight. Do I want to see it? No, not really. But if the money's right, I'll watch it. I would like to see all those guys at 154. I think the perfect card would be Errol Spence, Jermell Charlo, Andrade, Jermell Charlo. Put them all on the same freaking card. All y'all mid-30s, late 30s. It's fight. Yeah, both of the Charlo brothers, Errol Spence, Demetrius Andrade. That's good work right there. The Charlos and Andrade, they got smoked 12 years ago. He should have at least fought one of them. So I think he can make it happen. You know what I'm saying? It's a good fight, man. You can make Errol and Jermell the main, make Jamal and Andrade the co-main. You got a good card right there.
I think we'll call the card closure. we'll call the card closure.
Determine on that card, win, lose, or draw.
I think we call it closure. Let me tell you something, guys. I'm going to be frank and upfront, right? My opinion, right? The PBC needs to do something that gives the boxing space confidence in their future in this sport. It's cool. You want to weigh out this Errol Spence, Jermell Charlo fight? I'm going to watch it. I would love to watch the fight, to be honest with you. Out of all the old school type of energy, this one is one that I could watch. I can get behind this. I'm more so in, on the line of, like, I don't know if I want to feed into it too much, just because we've been dealing with this. We're coming back type of gaslighting, and it never is manifested into anything. But at the same time, where is the future of the PBC? Where are the future fighters? Where are the young fighters? Where is the next generation of PBC fighters that are going to take this PBC flag, wave it proudly, and be part of the next era of boxing that's being ushered in? I haven't seen it. And to say I'm concerned would be an overstatement, because am I concerned? Not really, because I'm watching a lot of boxing. Boxing has been good to me. I'm watching a lot of boxing. But when I see things like this, Jermell Charlo fighting Errol Spence, when I see things like Keith Thurman fighting Sebastian Fundora, and Sebastian Fundora vacating his WBO title, when I see David Benavidez headlining a Riyadh season card, when I see all these little pieces moving, it just chips away to my faith in the PBC's ability to be part of this conversation that we're heading into. And that's where I'm at with it when I see it. When I see Jermell Charlo talking about fight Errol Spence, I see money grab. I see
some money grab.
I see, like you said, Coach Eddie, Al Heyman. I see Al Heyman capitalizing off the whatever he has left in the stable, and I see Gervonta Tank Davis going to fight Jake Paul. I see him leaving the game. I see David Benavidez over there about to headline a card on the Zone in Riyadh season. I look on the flyer. I don't see the PBC on the flyer. I look on the flyer of the Gervonta Tank Davis, Jake Paul. I don't see PBC on that flyer. It just says to me so loudly, what is the PBC doing to make sure that they're present for the future of boxing? Where are your young fighters? Where is development? Where is the development at? Where are the fighters that you are introducing to us as the next generation of fighters coming out of that stable? That's where I'm at with it. That's where I see it. You know, that's where my mind goes when I see stuff like that. Whenever I hear stuff like that, my mind goes, oh. And I hate to be that way, right? But it's just the truth. I'm just being honest about how it makes me feel. I'm like, okay, whatever. But at the same time, come on. I'm wanting to see something from the PBC. And then I ask myself, people who talk about network deals and different channels and ESPN, I'm hearing rumors of ESPN potentially doing deals with the PBC. And I say to myself, why? Why? What does ESPN see? If ESPN or Peacock or Amazon or anybody's looking to do work with the PBC and invest into the idea of this company being what it used to be, under what pretense? Under what? What's the future? We got fighters who don't want to fight on your roster. Fighters who used to be the ish 2 years ago, who we were looking forward to, who made PBC the top premier boxing organization in the game. But these guys don't want to fight. Errol's not really interested in fighting that way. He talks, but he's not, well, at least not for the prices that you're willing to offer him. Jermell ain't that interested in fighting. He got his payday with Canelo Alvarez, and not only did he get his payday with Canelo Alvarez, but the performance was like, I'm going off into the sunset. A horrible performance against Canelo Alvarez. Gervonta Tank Davis has been dragging his feet with Lamont Roach and dragging his feet with this quote-unquote 6 or 7 fight deal to make fights with these fighters that he's never done. And ultimately, on the back end of talking about retiring, on the back end of saying he's disenchanted with the sport, about to go fight a circus fight with Jake Paul for a big payday that you're not even part of. So what exactly am I investing in if I'm ESPN? What am I investing in if I'm Peacock? What am I investing in if I'm HBO or any other channel that may be particularly entertaining working with this company? On what? What am I investing in? Canelo's gone. That's what I see when I see a Jermell Charlo, Errol Spence fight being entertained. That's what I see, unfortunately. Salute to my guy, Angelo Reyes in the building. Reyes, Angelo, how you doing, man? No see, no hear. How you feeling this morning?
I'm doing good, man. Sorry again that I didn't get a chance to catch you in the beginning. I did listen to a good amount of it. I wanted to come in before you closed because you know how I like to make announcements on the ATP Combat Media. So remember I was telling you maybe a month ago about this whole thing that Dana White and Turkey's going to do. It's going to become like our new Tuesday night fights going into 2026. And I had mentioned that the title would be called The Underdog. Well, guess what, y'all? September 11th, The Underdog on the Fontainebleau, Las Vegas is happening. And the card has current world champion Anthony Alasquaga fighting against Juan Carlos Camacho Jr. That's the main event. It has Justin Valoria fighting against Joshua Fat Ortiz. It's got Jaleel Hackett versus Elijah Vines and Emiliano Alvarado against Juan Garcia and Jamar Talley. I think this is heavyweight versus Isaiah Thompson. But that's at the Fontainebleau. The only thing I'm upset at is that, and I don't know, I'm still asking the questions, but I was under the impression that because, you know, I don't want to say that they're charging so much to go to this event because for people who don't understand, right? If you've been to a concert before, you know what I'm talking about, Ray. You go to any concert, rap concert, music concert. This is about the ticket range for going to a concert when you're thinking about going to Canelo Crawford. The difference with Canelo Crawford is it's a mega event. And it's very rare for us to see, especially if you're really into boxing, a mega event. And I say rare because we don't live in the UK. In the UK, they get mega events all the time. That's why their tickets are a lot more accessible than ours. Here, Canelo Crawford was something that came from nowhere really in 2023. And now we're getting maybe our Leonard versus Hagler as we get closer and closer. I've heard you guys. And it's exciting to think about what can happen, right? It's exciting to believe that maybe our best American fighter will actually be able to pull this off. These are all exciting things. Unfortunately, if you're not a hardcore fan of boxing, you're not the audience, man. It's just like if you were to say, man, Taylor Swift tickets are so expensive. You're not the fan base, because there's plenty of people that are paying more money for Taylor Swift tickets than they are for Canelo Crawford. So I say that to say that the only thing that upsets me is I thought we would be able to watch some of these separate days like September 11th or September 12th. And again, I don't know yet, so I don't want to start calling them out. But I was under the impression that for us buying a ticket to September 13th, and it was already over 1,000 and over 2,000, however much you're buying it for, that you would also get a chance to watch things like this September 11th for free. You remember last year they did that when they did Crawford versus Madrimov. The fight card that was in Santa Monica was completely for free for everybody.
Right on the pier, right?
I think there was another fight card the day after, and it was free. So, so again, if this is one of those where they are selling tickets for the Fontainebleau, I get it, but I kind of don't, because if you understand the landscape of boxing, most people who already bought tickets for September 13th aren't going to all of a sudden buy a separate ticket to watch this fight. They'll probably just watch it on TV, on DAZN or whatever. But what are your thoughts on it, guys?
Well, I'm gonna be real with you. I think it speaks to what I was just talking about just right now before we came in, which is the investment in the future of boxing, and the fact that Turki Al-Sheikh has worked his ass off for the past 1.5 to 2 years to check every box. When people doubted him and they said he was too top heavy into the heavyweights, he dived into the other weight divisions. When they talked about he was too Riyadh season orientated, he started dropping events in America. When people talked about he didn't invest in the future of boxing, he invested in the WBC Grand Prix. And this is just another evidence of him also bringing in bringing in Dana White to go ahead and develop boxing and be part of the conversation of boxing 10 to 20, 30 years from now. This move right here is organic as it comes. It comes organic to me, and it makes complete sense. And it goes right with the campaign of out with the old, in with the new. We're not just talking about making the biggest fights and giving you a moment in time. We're going to give you a structured sport back. We're going to give a structured sport back to the fans. We're going to give you something to follow: champions, legacy, unifications, undisputed, new fresh talent that is driven on a whole new mantra in this sport, that are not caught up only in prize fighting, but also the people who grew up in these amateur gyms, who've been boxing ever since they were 8, 7, 8, 9 years old, with dreams and aspirations, looking at the wall of a Roy Jones or a Bernard Hopkins or Oscar De La Hoya or any other fighter who is decorated in belts and being celebrated like a true gladiator, who had aspirations of one day walking in those same shoes, right? The same thing that motivated a Mike Tyson when he seen a Muhammad Ali walk in front of him, and he made up his mind right then and there that this is what I'm going to do. Oh, this right here, the way that man's getting looked at, I need to get looked at like that. I think Turkey's investing in that completely, and this is just another piece of evidence to show how serious he is taking the sport of boxing.
And I just real quick would just say Riyadh season, like I said, they really trying to put together competitive fights all on different type of levels. So I like what they're doing. For me, I'm just a fan right now. I'm not saying Bud's gonna win. I'm rooting for Bud. I will be in that arena the day the tickets dropped. I think I got mine and me and my wife's for like $290 something a piece. I gotta give me some binoculars. I'm gonna do some reviews, get me some dope binoculars because I'm all the way up at the top. You feel me? But we gonna be in there for that whole event. And I booked my hotel, but like a half a mile from the arena. You feel me? We can walk if we wanted to, you feel me, or whatever. And I'm gonna plan to be there for I hope I can be in the weigh-in, right? I don't know. They ain't said no terms of these tickets. I don't know if the ticket allows me to go to the weigh-in, but I'm gonna try to get up in there. I'm gonna knock at the door. I'm a big fan of Undisputed too, so I'm gonna check out the Undisputed office while I'm down there. They got where they do the body scans. You feel me? Take a picture. I'll probably post it on my page or whatever. And so I'm just saying that it's Bud's not big of a star. Canelo is, so it's kind of like a hybrid for how big this fight could have been. But I'm just glad that I'm able to be there and be present, right? And I've been a Bud fan, like really, really impressed by him when he demolished Ngannou and got the undisputed at 140, then immediately went to 147 and immediately demolished Jeff Horn, and then just been tearing through everybody since then, right? So boxing fan, I know who he is, right? They are putting him in a position. It's late in his career, right? He's 38, like I said, for him to launch into stardom because Netflix got the WWE execs. It's bigger than just this fight. You can see they're filming everything behind the scenes. You see Bud has his own channel. He's filming his thing, but you can see the bigger film camera crew behind him, right? Then they're gonna go back into their history and all of that. So there's a whole lot that's going into this fight and going into the future of what maybe Bud and Canelo might do with a rematch or whatever. But that's just this fight. If they continue to do type of work like this for other great fights coming up, then boxing's in a good place as far as it having the media apparatus or machine around it to really do fights. Because we lost the 24/7 HBO, right? Remember Showtime behind the scenes and them guys fighting every week and competitively fighting every week, and promotions really lining everything up and lining competitive fights up. We had Sugar Shane Mosley, Trinidad, Oscar De La Hoya. You had, and then let's not even talk about the heavyweights during that time. Like, you really had boxing in a good place because there's fun in there. But as we all know, pay-per-view with the streaming, the revenue's not there, right? So that money's not coming in no more that it used to come in for lower tier boxers. So everything almost has to be like a spectacle for them to get the numbers that they used to get, back in the days for just a competitive boxing match. And so that's what, as fans of us, that's what we're going through right now. There's no money in boxing. Then you look at the other sports right since then. Look what the NBA is doing. Crazy. You talking about $600 million contracts now. Or 60 million a year. It's crazy numbers. Football, basketball, baseball. You feel me? With them unions and with TV contracts for years. They don't have all that secure bread to finance the fights that we want to fight. And it's just a wild, wild west and no man's land. And now we got great fighters that got their fathers promoting them. And I respect it, but they're coming in from the mud. That's why it's like you got to give respect to Brian Norman Jr. and Brian Norman Sr. You got to give respect to Bill Haney and Devin Haney, where they got their kids up as champions, young pups still looking to have an opportunity to be all-time greats, and they don't have no big machine behind them, and they're trying to learn the game as they go along, right? So it's just like you guys got to put things in perspective. We can't really put a metric in comparing what boxing to be like, what we want boxing to be as far as popularized in pop culture. You feel me? Because the funding's not there, the finance is not there, the back is not there for it. Because you need an organized sport. That's why UFC became so good, because he organized it like a closed sport. But once you get into these rankings, the number one has to fight for the championship. If you got an injury, they're gonna have an interim belt. We're gonna have the next guy up right next to you. You feel me? Fighting. And that's what made it so dope, because you've seen the best fighting the best on every card. Now you get anybody random cards or whatever they think is gonna make some money. They put these cards together and try to figure out how to make an event, right? Because they need to make the money and that's when the business gets away with us and the fans on us not seeing the fights we want to get, because it's just no man's land out here with his business and his contract and the negotiation. And I'll let my plane right there.
No doubt.
No,
Well,
I mean, to your point, and let me just add this, Claymore. I don't think boxing's ever been the issue per se in terms of a sport, because as an actual sport itself, it's the same sport that made Jake Paul famous. All right. And it just shows you how much people really actually gravitate towards the sport of boxing versus the sport of MMA. And I say that to say that every single celebrity, whatever we've ever seen, right? I've never really seen too many people get excited over celebrity MMA or celebrity this but the minute they say boxing, I think Shaq's about to do a celebrity boxing match with Roy Jones roughing it or something like that, right? So boxing, just as the sport itself, it's so relatable to every human being in every part of the globe that it's the easiest stage to use in order to make yourself relevant into something, right? But I think the difference though is like what you were saying.
Okay,
yeah. I thought you already landed your plane, Blaze. So that's why I'm talking.
Oh, no, I just know because it's just
all
one
right.
quick point.
Okay.
I think Jake Paul was from Disney. He was a star already. So it's like the opposite way. He's bringing them over here.
Right. You're not hearing my point, though, Blaze. You're not hearing my point. So my point is, again, the actual sport of boxing just boxing in itself. Me and Clay have had this conversation before about what started to close it in from being the number, I'd say top three, top 5 in the US is the less and less TV networks got involved to showing it accessibility to everybody. And the more and more promoters got into the structure of, well, the only way for us to pay big money to these fighters is if we do the lazy work and just put it on pay-per-view. An entire, 2-3 decades of that happens, then you keep maybe a fan base of the older cats who are like, yeah, I remember back in the day, blah, 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 right? But the newer generation kids, the ones playing video games, the one playing esports, the ones who did watch Disney growing up, to your point, Blaze, they're just trying to get entertained, man. And I think that what Claymore said, all Turkey's really done is even the playing field again and bring it back to accessibility. And it took them 2 years to do it versus PBC had a 10-year run and they didn't do anything about it. You know, in 2 years, Turkey was like, and I'm going to make it accessible for everyone. In fact, I'm going to make it so accessible that even after a pay-per-view, I'm just going to put it for free on my YouTube so that no one will complain and you don't have to really do Pirate's Life anymore. You could actually watch it on full 100% HD on my own YouTube because I really just want to give this away. And and we've talked about it on this show before. He's giving it away now because he's got a vision for 2030. By 2030, and that's a long ways away from now, but 5 years from now, boxing would have been so accessible to all the younger demographic, to the older demographic, to women, to whatever demographic you want. It would have been so accessible that everyone will actually know who these fighters are that we're talking about today on The Underdog. People are going to know all of the up-and-coming fighters. They're going to know them, and then they're going to appreciate them. And the last thing I'll say about that, Blaze, is, like I've said before on this show, you have 6 American fighters, man, 5 of them fighting for world titles on November 22nd. You had Claymore interviewing Brian Norman Sr., who's one of the main pieces of that card. Long, almost 3-hour interview, by the way, Clay, which I listened to the entire time. I was commenting, as you know, right?
I didn't get to talk. I thought I was going to talk to you before about how you thought about it, but yeah, later.
Yeah. No. I thought it was a good interview. There's some points I could talk to you about where when Brian Norman was saying one thing, I probably would have said something else. Okay. You know, but I thought for you yourself, you held your ground correctly because you weren't swinging away. You weren't about to get sold by that charisma that he brings. You were going to stick to your guns, which I really like. But anyways, my point, Blaze, is you have Claymore interviewing him for 3 hours. Why isn't Brian Norman at least with Stephen A. Smith for 30 minutes, 15 minutes? Because that's an American card. November 22nd is as USA America as you can get. The only difference is they're all fighting in Riyadh. But that's as American as apple pie as you're ever going to get for boxing, right? So, again, I blame American media for the reason why the boxing we watch, isn't as popular. I don't blame the fans. I don't even blame the fighters. I just blame American media. If a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, did the tree really fall, right? If boxing is happening all around the world and we're seeing the best boxing we've ever seen since the 1970s, is boxing really dead in America? Or is it just the fact that American media never gives a chance the same way Claymore gives a chance for Brian Norman to go on rants for a 3-hour interview?
Yeah, that's what it is that the media companies ain't got they interest in this because they're not connected to them companies. There's like no big, that's what I'm saying. Big media is not financing boxing right now. Like you said, they're not financing it. And because they're not financing it, it's not popularized in the US. That's the point I was making. Because their motto, I think it has a lot to do with like the majority of their motto, lazily with the pay-per-view. And then they didn't pivot. You know, as far as the whole, you know, the business structure was going on with how big TV companies were making money. And then you got to see it go, you know, the pay-per-view, the streaming also coincides with people unplugging as well, right? Because remember, it was huge cable companies and telecommunication companies, right, that were the ones that had the boxing, HBO, but you already know whatever, DirecTV, Comcast, whatever, whoever owns that subsidiary, right, to that major network for them to get that revenue. They were getting the subscription revenue like you would get from Netflix, but then they would also get this pay-per-view revenue. And now with everything with media just so spread out and people watch anything for free over paying for something because there's so many options, right? There's no industry for boxing. And so boxing is a different sport because once again, it's not a closed league, it's international, and then it's all type of like no rules, so you can't get like constant seasons, and and then it's unpredictable for how people fight next, right? So you can't get people like, oh, we're gonna fight five a year, right? Each boxer. It don't work like that. So the inconsistency of you being able to finance a project that will get consistent viewerships and consistent sponsorship is just not there, and that's why it's declined in comparison to other American sports such as basketball, baseball, and football that I described earlier.
Yo, can I jump in real quick for about 30 seconds?
Yeah,
also,
you can land it too because we're about to close up. I got to step away.
Okay, yeah, that'd be quick. Yeah, so even with the boxing, I think the audience has changed. If you remember back in the day, you would see out in the audience, you would see all the Hollywood A-listers. You would see Michael Douglas, you would see Ron Howard, you would see Denzel Washington, you would see Steven Spielberg, you would see all these big time celebrities. It was also promotion for their next movie because they would always talk about the upcoming project that they had going on during the boxing match. The audience has changed. If you go back even in the 50s and 60s, that audience has changed. You've seen a whole bunch of gangsters that were sitting front row. And just to keep it frank, the color of the audience has changed. I mean, that is the elephant in the room. The boxing ring used to be surrounded by white people. Now it's changed. Now it's black and browns. So that's something that I don't know if y'all ever thought about that dynamic, but the audience has definitely changed. And it was a big thing when you seen Ron Howard, Steven Spielberg. You would see, Mel Gibson. You would see all these A-list celebrities there. That's how they was able to jack those prices up at the Floyd Mayweather event because you wanted to be at the event. You would pay $20,000 for a ringside seat because you wanted to show all your friends, hey, look, I got the money. I'm doing good in Hollywood. It was a networking, almost a networking opportunity at the same time. So sponsors wanted to show up. You had Budweiser who had their sponsorship on the mat. So all the commercial, all that good stuff is now just kind of been taken out. So I don't know if it's because of the boxer or call it the promotion has changed or what, but it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Boxing is evolving. We're heading into a new era. They're marketing to a whole additional demographic. They're tapping into the youth. They're tapping into the future. This card that Angelo brought up here, really just another just another one in the hat, right? Just another box they're checking on how much they're committed into the future of the sport. And embrace it if you love boxing. But if you don't love boxing and it turns out that your favorite fighter was the only reason you're here, then I guess we'll be seeing you in another sport or in another space at some point in time. Boxing is hitting this next level, man. Catch up or get left, man. It is what it is. Guys, thank you to everybody on the panel. Thank you to everybody in the building that showed up in the chat. Thank you to the super chats in the building today. Please remember to hit that like button. If you didn't do that yet, make sure you hit that like button. Help it out. Feel free to, by the way, share the channel with friends and family. Let them know that we're here talking boxing 3 days a week. And also subscribe. If that hasn't happened yet, subscribe to the channel, hit your notification so you're getting notified when we're dropping content like this, lives like this, interviews like what I did last night with Brian Norman Sr. Looking forward to do more and different things. I appreciate all the support, man. Thank you guys on the panel. Thanks, Angelo. Thanks to Blazer Pound. Thanks to Ray Davis. And you know how we carry, man. It's that ATP Combat Media Show. And at this point,
we out.
Make it this far, they hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball, I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say, I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life, I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitted for it, cause you all cap like. Hold up, I shoot my shot, wait, hold up. I'm really about to run this, go up. You know it's all net when it go up. Ain't got no other